Money boy, money boy, money boy. Trade. Money boy, money boy, money boy. Trade.
Private jet flights overseas. Damn piece.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Toxic Masculinity, episode 17. I am your host, MoneyBoy Trey. Today, I am here with Dr. Lawrence Guy, PH.D., and we're going to talk about if race relations have changed from like the 60s up into now. How you doing, Dr. Lawrence?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here. And Lawrence works just fine.
I know I'm gonna call you by your proper title, Doctor. You earned it. You deserved it. I'm gonna call you that. Question, Dr. Lawrence: what is a doctor of philosophy?
Well, it's pretty much studying the various histories of theoretical processes through existence. It entails a variety of things from standard philosophy to comparative religions, anthropology, metaphysics, etc., and so on.
So, in other words, you're a Renaissance man. You know a little bit about everything.
That's interesting. That's an interesting take. I've been called a lot of things, but not that. I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that. I think it's one of those things. As odd as it might sound, I think someone who becomes a philosopher or philosophy major is kind of like a theoretical physicist. They're more interesting in understanding the underlying reasons for why things work. Um, One's just more from a physical perspective, while while the other's more from an esoteric perspective. Um, but at the end of the day, it's a desire to understand why things work, why people do what they do, why they do it, how it affects not just nuclear um, the nuclear group, which would be the immediate family, but also how it affects neighborhood and from neighborhood to state to society as a whole, how it's built, how it comes together as a unit, or even down to its destruction. So,
So, what led you into philosophy?
Actually, I didn't start off there. I actually started off pre-law at Boston University, um, but I didn't. I didn't. My thought process on law and justice didn't meld well with the idea of becoming a lawyer at the end of the day.
Got you. You weren't comfortable with letting criminals off.
Well, there's always been a theory that there's a difference between law and a difference between justice. I would say I err more towards the concept of justice than law, and the two don't generally mix well together. They do in some instances, but in the vast majority of them, not very well, from my perspective.
Okay. So are you? I'm trying to figure how to frame this. Were you around during the civil rights era, the civil rights movement?
Actually, I was born at the tail end of it. I was not, well, I wasn't. I think I was a year or two old when we lost Martin, Dr. King. Um,
Okay.
and as crazy as it sounds, at the age of two, I remember the chaos that caused and I mean, I might not know the conversations per se of what was going on, but I do have a sense of how things were in my household growing up, and how everybody was shocked and terrified. And of course, as a 2 year old, you don't understand what they're saying, but you do feed off the energy and you remember the energy of it as you get older. Um, from that perspective, yeah, I was there.
Yeah,
But
Martin died in my city, and every time I go to the Lorraine Motel, I just get this weird feeling and energy that comes over me every time I go down there.
yeah. Even to this day, and in certain areas that he's visited in his lifetime during the civil rights fight, um, you can still feel a little of that energy in the air. Um, and when you come across older generations, um, you still hear a little bit of the pain in their voice when they discuss it. So,
Well, I have this saying that old folk be lying because old folk be putting the fear of God in us about anything we do. And that kind of brought me to this conversation because when I listen to a lot of elders, they always tell the youth that to watch out for the white man. The white man got his foot on your throat. You're damned if you do. They bomb Wall Street. It's like they always are instilling fear in us. And I don't think that's cool because, I mean, it's pretty much telling the younger generation that no matter what you do, you're doomed to fail.
well, then that's an interesting perspective, and it has so many different responses to it.
Unpeel
Uh,
them.
in all actuality, I would say you're absolutely right on that. But it's a situation where, as a people, at least in this country, our entire existence, genetically and through heredity, has always been a state of fear and panic. So to have it carry down through generations is not surprising in any capacity whatsoever.
When you say always, are you referring to American blacks?
Yes, I am. Mhm.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes, I am. Just American blacks. I It's always been an ongoing thing, because we've seen so much history, in which when either in slavery and the fear from that, or when slavery ended, the fear from that trying to build to the civil rights and seeing how things happen there. From a cultural perspective, we're fearful people. Fearful, no, excuse me, fearful people, and with good reason in a lot of cases, vast majority of cases. But there has to come a point in time where you have to put that fear behind, and you have to take the steps necessary to achieve what it is that you want to achieve, whether it be for yourself, your community, or whatever have you may. But there comes a point you have to swallow through that. Now, from the older generation that you're talking about, especially from the mother's perspective, and I don't take away from fathers at all, because it applies to them as well. I just think where mothers are concerned, each generation has grown up mother-wise listening to other mothers talk about losing their children, especially their sons. And that's whether you're a mother, whether you're a sister to that brother, but it's just something that's instilled. And fathers have it as well, but it's a little more nuanced.
But mothers losing their sons, is that something that happened on a huge scale, or is that more of an urban legend?
Well, not being there, I can't.
And see, that's why you weren't there always, but you still came up through a very tense time. So I want to kind of look through your eyes. Do you like? I want to know like your stories of police brutality or how they policed your neighborhood and things like that.
Oh, okay. From that perspective, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. So
Shit.
realistically, yeah, realistically speaking, I saw it all the time. Whether it's harassing you, just for walking down the street. See, I've seen situations where I've watched police officers literally walk up the stoop of someone sitting outside their own brownstone on their stoop and harass them for sitting outside on their own stoop. Yeah, you got to understand that when I was in New York and I was growing up in my formative years, there were a lot of things that were going on in New York. We had the young lady in Queens who was stabbed outside to death while she screamed for help and nobody came out. I was there with when it was Son of Sam. I was there during Serpico, trying to weed out police corruption. I was there with Bernie Getz. I mean,
This was doing like what, the Harlem Renaissance per se, or
well,
Malcolm.
well, the Harlem Renaissance came a little bit after. I would say the Harlem Renaissance came more towards mid-late 80s. I'm talking about early 80s and then the 70s.
Okay.
For all the stuff that I was talking about. That was 70s and early 80s.
So in the
Because
70s, they were already kind of like implementing stop and frisk.
well, stop and frisk has always existed. Always, even before the time frame we're talking about, my growing up. I mean, it's always been the case. We just have a new name for it, but it's always existed. I mean, you could walk down the street back in the 50s and, whether it be a police officer or just a white person in general, just stop you and challenge you on where you're going, asking you what you got, what you're doing, and all that good stuff. So the stop and frisk is nothing new. It's been here forever. Like I said, different name, different time period, but it's the same tactics.
Yeah.
But in the 70s, yeah, my uncles, yeah, they used to get it all the time. Like I said, they could be standing outside their girlfriend's house, which is directly across the street. Police will pull up, start challenging them on what they doing, what you got, et cetera, and so on. Put them up against the wall, search them, no reason, just because they wanted to. So like I said, that's nothing new. That's always been here.
That's I find that very interesting because it sounds like the North was just like the South.
Well, it was like that everywhere. Doesn't make a difference if it was north, south, east, west. That was always the case.
Well, history tries to tell us they were more liberal and accepting of blacks towards the North and out towards the West. So it
Well,
made it
history.
seem like the
Well,
racism was focused solely in the South.
no. Well, first of all, history is written by the victors, so that's that. Um, because after all is said and done, and you won, you try to write history in a fashion that's beneficial to you to make you not look so bad for what you did. That's just the nature of things. And that's not a white thing or a black thing or a Spanish thing. If you look at society and the histories, everything from Rome to Egypt, et cetera, and so on, they've all rewritten history that way to make themselves look better than what they actually were. So that's nothing new. Um, but in the sense of the difference between the North and the South, there was racism in both. Absolutely. In the North, the only difference I would say between the two is the North wasn't so blatant in your face with it, depending on where you were in the North. Because in some places they were very blatant, but for the most part, they weren't very blatant with it. They used more and systematic ways to do it by lopping everyone together in specific neighborhoods. You were only allowed to be in that particular neighborhood. They didn't really want you moving into theirs. You know, the same thing you've seen everywhere else. It wasn't to as large a degree, but it was large enough to still be a problem.
I thought New York was pretty diverse, though, with all the Italians and the Jewish and the different ethnicities that stay there. So was it just towards blacks, or do you feel like it was towards all the other ethnicities there?
Well, at the end of the day, everybody had their own section, and truth be told, you stayed in your section. It was just that simple. Like for instance, in Brooklyn, the most predominant area in Brooklyn that was black was Brownsville. The name
The
states it all.
90s.
Yeah, what it was even before the 90s. But and then you would have
Isn't that what the neighborhood's called, the 90s?
uh for what was it,
In
Brown?
Brownsville? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe so. Because I was from Bedford Stuyvesant. We called that do or die, Bed-Stuy. Um, so there's that. You would go to East New York. That would be predominantly Puerto Rican. Crown Heights was predominantly Jewish. Little Italy speaks for itself. Chinatown speaks for itself. Everybody had their own little section, and they pretty much stayed to it. Um, Unless, of course, you were working somewhere that had a variety of people in it. But for the most part, everybody stayed in their own neck of the woods. I would say that I think police harassed blacks the most, probably with second maybe being tied between the Chinatown and um, Puerto Ricans, in the areas they were in.
Do you
And
think that is because black people didn't want to police their own neighborhoods? Because I don't know if it's true or not, but the word on the street is that the other ethnicities typically police their own neighborhoods, so therefore they don't interact with the police as much.
that would be correct, actually. That from my experience growing up in New York, yeah, that's what I saw. Um, especially in the Jewish community. I mean, they had their own security forces and everything else. If a police officer came through, 9 times out of 10, either they would go to the synagogue and speak to the elders, or they would speak to those security officers there. For the most part, you wouldn't see a police officer just come through their neighborhood, grab somebody, put them up against the wall, and shake them down. And the Asians, the Chinese, Chinatown was pretty much the same as well. Italy had their own brand of justice, so I'm going to leave that as is. but yeah. Well, I mean, you're talking about mafia, so
Yeah.
So in that respect, yeah, I don't. Black people never figured out how to police their own, and either they never figured it out or they just weren't interested at the end of the day.
Well, they said that's what weren't the Black Panthers kind of policing their own neighborhoods?
Yeah, see, they were to a degree. They were, but not on the level that the other cultures that we just mentioned were doing it.
Yeah, well, I can't agree that we started behind the 8 ball, so I can definitely agree that they weren't as set up and prepared to police their own neighborhoods as the other people.
Well, see, here's the trick. Between Chinatown and Little Italy and the rest of them, they focused on their area and their area alone. Whatever, it's like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty similar in that way with them. However, where Black people are concerned, and speaking on the Black Panthers, they were focused more outside the neighborhood. They were trying to do things on a national level. They wanted things to change for Black people as a whole nationally. So they were fighting for, free lunch meals, food, legal things to change. So they were a broader scope than everyone else. Everyone else handled their stuff in the house. Black Panthers and a couple of other parties expanded outside of that to get national change, which is not bad. But the reality of it is like anything else in life. Before you clean up someone else's backyard, you have to clean up your own. And since not doing that, I personally, my perspective is why it didn't go as far as it could have. You can only go to someone and ask for things so much before those people start to see that you're not even doing the proper things with what you have. So why would I bother or invest? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. How were there a lot of Black businesses in New York during the segregation? Hold on, was New York segregated? Now, let me ask that. I know the South was segregated. Was New York segregated?
When I was growing up, like I said, it wasn't segregated by the legal definition of the term, but everyone had their own spaces where they stayed. And that wasn't so much, I wouldn't even say that's so much a thing as segregation, so much as it is about sticking with your own and knowing your own.
Tribalism.
That's how I look. Yeah, exactly. Tribalism. Thank you. That's a perfect word.
Because one of my harshest criticisms of the civil rights movement was we literally put Black people out of business trying to go support white people who didn't want us. And I'm just like, that could have been dangerous for your health off top. Why would I want to go eat at someone's restaurant that doesn't like me and could poison me when I have my brother over here in my own neighborhood that I know I'm cool with, that has no ill will towards me?
Because that's an interesting perspective. Because I have one of my best friends, we have the same name, Lawrence, owns a pharmacy in Brooklyn, 20 plus years now. And one of the things I always noticed is that other Black people would come in and want to buy something and they want to haggle the price, which fascinates me. And I think, if I'm remembering it correctly, one day he got really annoyed at it. I think it was a young lady who came in. She wanted to buy, what was it? Oh, a Dark and Lovely hair relaxer kit. Yeah. And he had it in there for like $5.95, I think it was the price. And she started to try to haggle him down to like $3. And she kept going back and forth. I would say maybe about 3-4 minutes with it. And he looked at her, and I remember this very well. He said, you know what I find interesting about my people? And she said, what? He said, if you walked into a white man's store, Walgreens, CVS, would you haggle him or would you just pay it? And she didn't know what to say, and she got so upset she turned around and she walked out the door. But his question was valid, and that's one of the things with our people that disturbs me the most, because we have that situation. We have that situation where because we look alike, there's this thought that there should automatically be a five-finger discount. If you pardon my my
Oh,
old
I know
neighborhood.
what that is.
Yeah. You know, there's always something about a five-finger discount or a family discount or friends and family, and this is where it goes wrong, because you want to walk in there, you want the black owner to always give you a discount and anybody else who comes in. But realistically speaking, if that happens, that business owner can't maintain the structure of his business. So then what happens? He loses money, he loses the business, it shuts down. Then you want to complain and whine about why there's no black business in your neighborhood.
Well,
You can't have it both ways.
I have to admit I'm guilty of it, but only on certain things. Like I have a problem paying $50 for a damn Gildan t-shirt. But on the same token, there's this cheesecake place in Memphis that I go to. The cheesecake is $10 a slice. I've never questioned it. It's so damn good. Customers
Yeah.
and the service is shitty. That's how good the cheesecake is. I will put up with the shitty manager sometimes because the cheesecake's there.
Mm-hmm.
But like somebody that's selling t-shirt, like if somebody walks up to me with a Black Lives Matter t-shirt for $50, that's price gouging. We have that bad as well. So it kind of makes it hard on the people that are actually trying to be up and serve the community.
Well, and that's true. That's true. But realistically speaking, and I'm not making an excuse for the $50 t-shirt, not at all. But at the end of the day, we're price gouged every day by everybody. It makes no and it makes no difference what they look like. It makes no difference what color they are. They see us coming, they automatically assume they can add extra on. You know, kind of like a tax for being black, if you pardon the analogy. But yeah, but that's something that happens no matter what. But even with the higher cost, even with the price hike or gouging or whatever term you want to use it, that's something we get all the time. Again, like I said, no matter who we buy from. And I really don't have a sufficient answer for that. I know the average black business person is trying to make a profit, and I get that. I absolutely get that, and you should. That's the point of
Everybody's
business.
trying to make a profit. That's the point of business.
Exactly, that's the point of business. But there is something to be said when you go above and beyond the call of duty. First of all, Black Lives Matter, Superman, Archie Bunker, whatever the T-shirt says makes no difference to me. There should never be a $50 T-shirt. That's just me. As
Tried though.
well, as a matter of fact, I grew up when all that started, because if you remember, high prices for silly stuff started when I was growing up. It started with Brooke Shields and Jordache and Vidal Sassoon jeans. Girls were running out girls were running out like crazy to pay $100 for a pair of jeans. My brain couldn't fathom that. And then the sneakers situation started, and it started with Pumas, suede sneakers. And the guys started doing it, $200 for sneakers and et cetera and so on. I can never wrap my head around it, but that's really when you started to see that kind of stuff kick into play. That's where it started, in my opinion, and it moved from there. I mean, we have other isolated situations prior to that, but when it really became mainstream, uh, uh, early 80s and upwards is really when that kicked in. That kind of mentality with price gouging and excessive costs for things that are ridiculous. So,
Have you ever experienced direct racism in your life? Because people look at me crazy when I say that I have never experienced it. I honestly haven't.
well, okay, that's a trick question, because
Well,
here's why I say,
okay, I got you. It's a trick question, but like me, I may have been treated racist and didn't know it. But like I said, I've never been directly or overtly treated racist. I've never had a person slam the door, tell me to get out, call me out my name, or anything of that such.
Well, okay, and okay. Here's the thing. When I said it's a trick question, I didn't mean the sense in that you were trying to set me up. I mean it's a trick question in the sense of the answer that comes. It's I have experienced racism, but the issue here is that I didn't get it from white people. I got it from my own.
Ding.
That's why
I
I
even
was
call
that's
that
why
racism.
that's why I was saying it was tricky. And I've got it for a variety of things. I've got it because I was light skinned, they were dark skinned. Then when I got older, I started getting darker. Now I get it from light skin to me about being dark skinned. It's just the weirdest thing. Um, Now I have had isolated instances of white people being racist to me, but the only thing that I have that's really solid is about 10 years ago. I was up for a vice president position for JDB International logistics firm, and the owner really liked me. As a matter of fact, she poached me from another company I used to work for, Pilot Air Freight, and she personally invited me to come down and interview with the chairman of the board. So, I did the normal stuff, submit resumes, letters, yada, 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 and set up the appointment. And I went in and I sat down and he didn't even look at me. He sat there for like 5, 10 minutes reading something. So I'm like, okay, so maybe he's trying to test to see if I have patience or something like that. Which again is fine. We have little tactics we use in the hiring process. And eventually he looked up at me and he said, "So you were military intelligence?" Yes, I was. "So what did you think of the latest newsletter?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you did your training at Fort Huachuca." I said, "Yes, I have." And he's like, "So you the newsletter?" I said, "No, I don't keep up with the newsletter." He's like, "Well, why wouldn't you if you were military intelligence?" And I was like, "I don't have to keep up with a newsletter if I don't want to." I mean, I said, with all due respect, I don't know what you're trying to get. Is it a challenge on whether or not I actually served? Because if that's the case, if you look in my file, my DD 214 is there, and all my rewards, my rank, and everything else. And he said, "Oh yeah, your resume. That's right, that's right." And then he started shifting through papers. And he's like, and he finally found it like under a stack of other stuff buried at the bottom. He's like, "Yeah, I didn't even read this." So my response is like, "Well, if you haven't read it, then why am I here interviewing with you?" He said, "Well, need to figure out, if you're good for the vice president position and et cetera and so on. But if you didn't vet my information, how can you make a decision?" So he just looked at me and he started to carry on with the interview. And partway through it, he kept making comments about the way I was talking. And then he eventually sat back. He said, "Well, this was a good 20 minutes, and I think I've made an assessment." And I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "Under the circumstances, the way you talk, I don't think you need to be vice president. I think you need to be a salesman." And I'm like, "I beg your pardon?" And he's like, "Well, the way you speak and the way you carry yourself, you would be very good at sales." Well, with all due respect, I'm not in here interviewing for sales. I'm in here interviewing for a C-suite position. And he said, "Well, that's fine. That's fine. I understand that. But I think you'd be better off being a salesperson." And I said, only because I speak the way I speak." He said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's just my personal assessment." And then I can't remember what he said. And I'm going to be completely honest here. Um, Not to use, I hate using this phrase, but it applies. It triggered me. Even to this day, I can't remember what he said, but it triggered me. Where I actually leaned over the table and I said, "I'm going to thank you for your time. And I'm going to leave now before I lose my military bearing." And he said, "What does that mean?" I said, "It means I'm doing everything possible not to come over to the other side of that table and put my foot knee deep in your ass till I come up with a shit ring around my kneecap."
You sound like my master sergeant.
But you have a damn good day. All right. And I got up and I walked out. Now, here's what's interesting. He sat there silently as I walked out because at the end of the day, he got what he wanted. He didn't want me there to begin with. But as I walked out, here's what's interesting. Because this is Florida I'm talking about. But when I walked out, there were two secretaries that were sitting there, both of them themselves from New York, one white, one Spanish. And as I walked out the door, they didn't even get a chance to look at my face. I looked up and they were already shaking their head no. And I'm looking at them and I kind of tilted my head and they called me over and I got over there and it's like, it was nice meeting you. I know we won't get to see you again. And I said, that's true. That's true. And thank you for the opportunity of letting me be here. And they said, well, no, we've seen this before. We've seen this before. He does this to everybody who looks black. I said, really? It's like, yeah. And I was like, well, does the owner know this? And they were like, I don't know. We've made inferences, but whether or not she does anything about it, we don't know. I said, okay. And that's your chairman of the board. Okay. Well, I wish you guys the best. And that's it. That's the worst case of racism that I've ever come across, at least from white people. My interactions with white people as a whole have been, I would say, 99% positive.
I can say, because I came up in a school where my brother's 4 years older than me. So we were the only two black kids in the school when we were there. And when he graduated, I had 4 years there by myself. And I literally never experienced it. I guess it was because I was a male. I never experienced it. But by the time I got to the 8th grade, there was another black girl that had come to the school. And they tried her like she got called an N-word, but it never happened to me. And then the people were coming up to me like, hey, you heard such and such called her an N-word. And I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I didn't even hear it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And for me, when I went to high school, it was predominantly Puerto Rican and some type of Spanish, Puerto Rican and Cuban. About somewhere between 80 and 90% was my high school. So I would get it from them, but 9 times out of 10, I got it from them because they didn't want quote unquote our people dating their girls. But you know, but it's one of those things where at the end of the day, you can't. And I know this sounds really bad, but you can't get mad at that.
It doesn't sound bad. It's real.
Yeah, it's real. From a tribal perspective, you want your own to be with your own. So it's not something that I ever took seriously per se in that respect.
And I say all the time, I was like, I don't believe in affirmative action and the Rooney Rule that the NFL has, because I said I have my own business and I'll be damned if I want somebody to come in and tell me who the fuck I should hire. I said I want to leave that decision up to my kids and my loved ones that I'm employing or putting in power. I shouldn't have to be forced to hire somebody that I don't want to.
No, agreed. Affirmative action had its purpose, but it wasn't implemented properly from the jump. That's one of the main problems.
Expound on it.
Well, it was okay. Affirmative action was in and of itself put in place to allow non-whites, for lack of a better term, to have the opportunity to get into business, work, move up without being held down from being racist and etc. That's a great theory. The opportunity for everybody to have equal opportunity. I understand that. But the problem with it is that, one, in my opinion, it wasn't implemented properly because there should be a vetting process like anything else in life. You should not get something just because you're black. Because if that's your argument, then you're wrong. Because you
say that again for me, please. Say that again for me, please.
Getting something just because you're black means nothing. Because at the end of the day, you're just like the oppressors you're complaining about. Because you just sat here for decades saying white people get everything because they're white. Okay, then if that's true, why is it not good for them, but it works for you? That's not how to, you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
Now, when I say about the implementation should have been, if you want to do something where you give people of different cultures and races the opportunity, again, there should be a vetting system. In other words, if you've got a white guy and you've got a black guy sitting there, and they both have the exact same skill set, the same amount of experience, and so on and so forth. The white guy shouldn't get $80,000 and you only get 50. That's where affirmative action should come into play. That's where the opportunities and equality should kick in to course correct. But to simply have affirmative action for you to get a job or get a position just because of the way you look, you're literally using the exact same tactics you've been complaining about. It makes no sense to me.
Exactly.
It makes no sense to me. At the end of the day, when I'm dead and gone, I don't want people to have a conversation. Lawrence Guy was successful because of affirmative action or because he got this. I want people to sit and say Lawrence Guy worked his ass off. Lawrence Guy achieved what he achieved because of his skill set, his experience, his knowledge, his know-how, and that he got up every day and put every ounce of work he had into it. That's what I want to be said. I don't want my children to think the easy way out is just to scream out, "I'm black." That's not how it works. That's not how it works. And it makes no difference what time period you pick, whether it be Egypt, Rome, Babylon, Mesopotamia. That's not how it works. It's about what your skill set is and what you can and cannot achieve. Now, do people add on stuff to that? Absolutely. And we start making it a cultural thing. Well, if you're black, you can't be as smart as this one, or if you're Asian, you're smarter than it. Those are man-made things.
Yes.
Those are man-made things that are meant to keep people
Divided.
Yeah, divided and occupied, not to see what's really going on behind the scenes. That's my personal take. That's my personal take, and I know a lot of people don't agree with that. I know they don't, but
Fuck 'em. That's what we do over here on Toxic Masculinity. We say shit to make people mad, but at the end of the day, they can't refute what we're saying. So I heard you say that you were a military vet. I'm a former Air Force airman myself. I have a love-hate relationship with the military because I love the women, pretty much. I love the women. That was about it. But I didn't like how they treat you like shit. It doesn't matter what color you are. If you don't have any rank, you're treated like shit. And I didn't like that. So when my son came to me saying, "Well, Dad, I want to go to the military," I was like, "You too much like me. Don't go." I said, you're too independent to go. And one of the hardest things for me is, like I said, you reminded me of my master sergeant. I got in trouble once, and my master sergeant ripped me a new asshole in front of everybody, and I couldn't say shit. And he was like, "You look like you want to whoop my ass. Back in the day, I'd have took you out back, and we could have got one." And I just got to sit there and take it. I didn't like that.
well, you guys didn't have a pit.
No. Yeah, I went in September 11, 2001, so they didn't have that. I guess they were trying to focus on real shit. But if we had a pit, I definitely would have took a swing at him. Dude's name was Master Sergeant Sheen. He was a fat Asian. Could have whooped his ass.
Yeah. We always had a pit that when it got that bad or the situation required it, you take that rank off your collar, go in the pit, and you settle it. I remember a private first class, Ocasio. He was from Brooklyn, like I was, and there was a butterball. A second lieutenant for people who don't know. A second lieutenant who had just got promoted to first lieutenant. He was talking about going to Ranger School. You couldn't tell this dude anything. He knew everything, etc., and so on. And I don't know, and he was a brother. And I don't know why, but he singled out Ocasio just day one. They didn't even know his name yet and was messing with him. And it went on for months. And Ocasio would take it. Like I said, he's private first class, man. He's trying to do the right thing and so he can move up in rank. And I can't remember what happened, but bottom line is they took it to the pit. They took it to the pit. And I got to tell you, it was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. To this day, me and the guys still talk about it. I mean, they got in there. He's trying to do all these fancy moves. And Ocasio's just like whooping his ass. And Ocasio beat him so bad, he knocked him down. And then Ocasio, and this is why it's so funny. Ocasio sat on the dude's chest. And while he's beating the dude in the face, he's reaching in the other pocket, pulling out a cigarette. And while he's swinging with one hand, he's pulling out a cigarette, lighting the other one, and he's smoking the cigarette while whooping the dude's ass. and his accent starts coming out now. You know, he starts doing that thick Spanish accent. Oh, you got something to say to me? You know what I'm saying? He's just beating the dude while having a smoke break. I'm like, yo, dude, we got to get him off. We got to get him off that dude. But yeah, like I said, we all had pits, man. And at some point in time, we've all went in them. I've been in the pit like 2 or 3 times. But it's sometimes, you know, a lot of people, when I tell them about the pit, well, that's barbaric. You're supposed to be military and you're supposed to have some control and bearing and yada yada, and all that's true. But at the end of the day, we're still men
with testosterone.
Exactly, and sometimes as men, we have to do it that way. It has to be that way. And it's funny because the way it used to work when I was younger, when you had those moments, whether it be high school, whether it be your neighborhood, it used to be when you had that fight with that dude, whether you won or lost didn't make a difference. When it was over, the dude respected you and you respected him. And 9 times out of 10, you became cool with each other after that. You know, I mean, maybe not the best of friends, but you were cool. You respected each other.
Yeah.
You know, and we've lost that now. We've lost that. Now if you get in a fight with somebody and the person who loses want to go back and get his boys, get some guns, come back, shoot you, shoot your family. I'm like, come on, dude, it was just a fight. It's not the end of the world. You win some, you lose some. You know, like I tell people all the time, I've lost more than I won. I have no shame in that. I have no shame in that.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Please.
I was going to ask, did you experience racism in the military? And how do you feel about us training foreign nationals? Because most other countries won't train us if we come there and we want to get in their military. I noticed that a lot when I was in basic training, that we had a lot of foreigners in our military.
Yeah. I personally think we shouldn't be training foreign nationals. It's not, and again, it's not a personal thing. It's a pragmatic thing. You cannot tell who's who. You don't know who's going to be your friend today and be your enemy tomorrow. And you've trained them in in everything they need to take you on. As a matter of fact, prime example, Bin Laden. Osama bin Laden was our enemy for quite some time. However, he got trained by us in the 80s in Afghanistan when we sent American soldiers to train rebels to take on Russia. So your friend today could be your enemy tomorrow and vice versa. So personally speaking, I don't think we should be training foreign nationals at all. As far as it goes for foreign nationals training us, in most cases, I'm not sure, but I think we're more advanced than them in that respect anyway. Not all, but for most. So they couldn't, no offense, but they couldn't offer us anything except maybe being better at working the type of terrain that they're located in. But for those that do have something to offer, I don't know. I think turnabout is fair play. If you don't train us, then don't expect us to train you.
Oh, a big thing going on today is voter suppression, and I've been noticing a lot of people complain about how long the lines are and stuff. But as I see, I'm only 37, but as I sit back and think, I'm like, every time an election has gone on, whether it was national or local, there was always long lines at the polling station. Am I correct on this, or was it different back in the day? Was it faster to vote?
Well, as far as it goes for voter suppression has existed since election day, since the first president. As a matter of fact, George Washington wasn't even elected by the people. He was elected by landowners and people of authority, because the average citizen wasn't allowed to have voting rights unless you owned land or something like that. So from day one, there's always been voter suppression. It's changed to different things, different people, different situations, but that's always been. As far as it goes for the polling places and the long lines, my knowledge in history with growing up and eventually voting, it's always been that way. But I don't put that on the system. I put that on the people, because that was the whole point in creating early voting. You know, every state has early voting blocks. So you don't have to do long lines if you don't want to. But the problem is as usual, everybody waits to the last minute. And then you get long lines. Now they want to complain about long lines. But you had 2 to 3 weeks of early voting. Why didn't you go get it done then? You know what I mean? And well, you know, it's during the day and I can't get off work. Some of the polling places are open on the weekends. So I don't know what you're talking about. So, but as far as it goes for the polling lines themselves, they've always been long. They've always been long.
Do you think do you think that, well, because back in the day they used to say you could get killed for voting, or they used to make it hard for you to get in there and vote. Do you think it's still the same now? Do you think they're still trying to hide and steal votes?
Yes, but not the way it used to be. I think at the end of the day, both sides, regardless of what party you affiliate yourself with, both sides use tactics that at the end of the day are detrimental to the American people as a whole. Whether it's gerrymandering, redrawing party lines, state lines, city lines, county lines, whatever, it's detrimental across the board, no matter which party you choose. And it's a situation in which how can I put this delicately?
Anyway, don't be delicate. This is toxic masculinity, where we say what the fuck we want to say unapologetically.
Okay, well then unapologetically, here's the situation. They don't care until they need us to win.
Thank you. And that's either party, Republicans or Democrats. Don't give a fuck about you until it's time to get in office.
That is correct. That is correct. And one of the biggest, absolutely. That's been my thought process. Now, I'm in my 50s, and as strange as this sounds, I became a Republican at 14.
Wow.
That's when I made the decision myself. Now, here's the thing. I stopped being a Republican. I would say almost. I gotta
ask you how you. Okay, I got it. When you get through with that, I gotta ask you how you got into politics at 14.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
But you said you stopped being a Republican about 7 years ago.
Between 7 and 8. Yeah.
During the Obama administration. The end. Well, towards the end of, because it's been 12 years with him and Trump.
Yeah. And that's because I realized that neither side was beneficial for me. Neither side. Neither side puts in policies that are required for me to vote for them that is beneficial to Black men. And
what kind of policies would you like? Expound on that. What kind of policies would you like?
Well, here's the thing. Before I get into that, let me explain the ones that I don't like.
Go ahead. We got time. Go ahead.
There are no the policies that are in place promotes Black women over Black men. That's unacceptable to me.
Which is why our community is fucked up right now. And y'all know I always said I give women 95% of the blame for the fuck shit that's going on in our community right now. Continue.
Yeah. That's the first thing. That's the first thing. Giving power and authority to Black women instead of Black men. That's one problem I have. The second problem with policies is that they ensure whatever is necessary to succeed, for the most part, again, is given to our women and not to us. Regardless of what that entails, whether it be loans, business opportunities, job opportunities, affirmative action, et cetera, and so on. So it's things along those lines that I have issue with. Now, what I do want to see, and what I'm expecting, but what I want, but I don't expect, is what I should say, there has not been one single candidate on either side that has talked about men's health issues, men's suicide issues, men have an opportunity to see their children and be able to raise their children. There's been no conversation about offering possibilities to generational wealth for Black men. There's been nothing put forward to talk about the mental and emotional scars that have damaged us, not just from people who don't look like us, but also from people who do. And these things are important. They are important. They're not only, no, let me rephrase that. They're not important. They're imperative for Black men's continued survival. And let me make clear
Men
that,
in general.
well, yeah, men in general, but everyone else have far more options to get around it
They do have a head start.
Yeah, than Black men do. And I want to make something clear that when I speak of Black men, that does not entail all Black men.
He ain't talking about niggas.
Yeah, thank you. I'm talking about true Black men, whose purpose is not to save a community that has already been destroyed. It's just in its death throes. But I'm talking about true Black men who know and see what's going on. And when the time is said and done and it starts crashing completely, are in a position to take advantage of it to rebuild something better. And we need you know, people talk about how, you know, well, when that time comes, we'll need doctors and lawyers and technology people, and that's great. We do. But above all things, what we need is elders with common sense. Because all the technology in the world, all the medical advancements in the world, when that moment comes for us as a group to rebuild, common sense has to play the key. Because here's the thing that I tell people all the time. We've just spent centuries doing it the way white people said. How's that worked out for us?
It's worked out terribly, but I don't think we followed the instructions right, because shit, if they told us how to get successful like them, they actually have a blueprint for it. So I don't think we've actually followed what they told us to do.
Well, it's both. One, we didn't follow it to the letter, and two, they didn't give us all the information.
Oh, nobody ever gives you all the information. It's up to you to study. They'll give you a blueprint. It's like an investor now. They will come. If Jeff Bezos came to me and invested in my show, he would invest in my show, but he wouldn't tell me everything that got him to be Jeff Bezos.
Exactly.
That's up to me to figure out.
Right, exactly. And the thing is that as a people as a whole, we're the only ones, at least here in this country, I'm speaking. We have no history to fall back on, no true sense of self or identity. All we have is what's been told us since we were brought here.
Well, I'm of the belief that our history started when we were born. I don't feel the need to go back to Kemet and say we were kings.
I agree. As a matter of fact, that's a phrase that just annoys me to no end. There's no way I'm calling any man king, any woman queen, and I'm certainly not going to have them call me that. Yeah. I have a hard time.
Bullshit.
Yeah, it's dumb, because here's the thing. Like the saying goes, everybody can't be a winner. so
exactly.
everybody can't be a king, everybody can't be a queen. When a Black woman comes up to me and tells me I'm a queen, my first response is, okay, so if we want to play that game, where's your king? Well, I don't have one.
Kingdom.
Where's your king? I don't have one. Then you can't be a queen.
Well, funny, she don't need a king, but where's your kingdom? Queen Elizabeth ain't got one, but where are your subjects? Where's your kingdom?
Well, that's where I was going for with the men. I was about to go there with the men, because the same way a woman, you look, you can be a queen if a man who's a king takes you to be one. As far as it goes for being a man, being a king, you have to have a kingdom in order to call yourself that.
Exactly.
So if neither one of you have what's required, how do you get to walk around calling yourselves that?
Exactly. And if we feel like that positive reinforcement works by calling each other kings and queens, why don't we try positive reinforcement on races?
Because positive reinforcement only works for those who want to accept it.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know. Now, me personally, I like the negative aspect from Pavlov's perspective with the dog, but that's a different kind of beast
You
because
have to explain that to me. I've heard of Pavlov's
okay,
perspective. I'm not versed on it.
here's the thing: positive self-affirmation is great, but negative reinforcement is better because you can talk to somebody all day, every day, and it won't mean anything. But there has been no greater teacher in life than pain. Period. It
Well,
cannot
yeah,
be argued, it cannot be challenged, it cannot be debated. There has been no greater teacher in existence other than pain.
and shame, because I'm of the belief to change a man, you have to shame a man.
Yeah, to a degree, but I consider that to be part of the overall encompassing aspect of pain. Because with shaming comes a great deal of pain because the embarrassment, you don't want to be seen, et cetera, and so on. And that's something else from a racial perspective with us that I also have a problem with because the way it used to work is that when I was growing up and when I was a young man, we held each other accountable. If we had a brother in our group who acted the fool, we pulled his coattails. If we had a brother in our group who would put his hands on his lady, we called him out. And the same thing used to be in reverse. If you had a girl in the group who was doing everybody's man, the other women would come forward and like, "Yo, what's up?" We kept each other in check. But there's none of that anymore.
Why do you think that
Because
is?
everybody, well, to me, in my opinion, everybody's bought into the propaganda of self. It's about self promotion, self preservation. It's about feeling good more than doing good. Because that's one of the things my grandfather taught me when I was growing up. Look, always do the right thing, even when nobody's watching.
Yep.
Because it's irrelevant to them, but it means everything to you. Stand firm in who you are and where you go. As a matter of fact, my cousin William said it best when we were growing up. He taught me this when I was like 15, 16. He said, always remember, someone else's perspective of you is not your reality. So if you want to get up in the morning and somebody wants to call you a punk, a pussy, a sucker, et cetera, and so on, that is not worth going to jail over for ego to fight with them. What matters is what you know. And if it doesn't match, then at the end of the day, they're not important. You keep it moving.
And yes, and I tell men all the time, we are men. We're not supposed to act off our emotions. That's what women do. We're the
That is
logical.
correct.
We're
That is
supposed to
correct.
outthink these things. Fisticuffs is only your last resort.
Not only is it your last resort, but it's only supposed to be used in specific instances. If if that person came up to you and literally physically assaulted you, yes. If that person walks up and puts hands on your woman, your children, something like that, yes, that's fisticuffs. But at the end of the day, I was just on another stream a couple of hours ago, and we were talking about this, and I was telling a story about we had a real big snowstorm in New York, and the way we were raised is that we have a lot of elderly in our neighborhood. So the young guys were required after the snow finished to go outside and shovel the yard and the walkway for the elderly because they couldn't do it, and you don't want to turn into ice and them slipping and falling and stuff like that. That wasn't even a debate. That wasn't a discussion. That's what just young men are supposed to do. That's how we were trained. It didn't make a difference if you liked the older person or not. That's your job, and we did it. No ifs, ands, or buts. And I remember there was this one time where I was doing that, and this car came by, and he sat a certain way in the road, and he spun his tires to kick all the snow
The snow.
back over to where I had just moved it from. So I stood up and I turned around and I looked at him straight through the windshield and looked him in the eyes. And then I turned around And then I went back to snowing. I mean, excuse me, shoveling. Sorry, not snowing. I went back to shoveling. The dude put the car in park, jumped out of it, and came up behind me and started yelling at me, talking about, "You got a problem?" Yeah, I do, man. You just knocked everything I just did back over here for no reason other than you could. So what, you want to do something about it? And I'm like, are you serious? And he's like, hell yeah, I'm serious. So let me see if I get this straight. You want me to go to prison for 20 years over snow? Is that what you're telling me? He's like, yeah, it ain't got nothing to do with snow, man. You know, you looked at me a funny way. I said, well, I looked at you like exactly what you were, a dumbass for doing what you did. And he's like, oh, so do something about it. Dude, I'm not fighting with you over snow, bro. Well, you a pussy. Okay, I'll take that. And he just looked at me. And then one of his boys got out the car and grabbed him and looked at him and said, yo, man, you don't mess with him, man. You don't want to mess with him, man.
Like, he ain't one of them niggas you thought he was.
And he's like, nah, man, no, I'm saying, you know, the way he looked at me, he said, yo, man, get back in the car. And he pushed him and he went back to the car. And then the brother that told him to go back came over to, he looked at me, he said, yo, man, I'm sorry about that, brother. I said, yo, no problem. But just for the record, man, don't apologize for somebody else's stupidity. You didn't do nothing wrong. And he's like, I feel you though, but real is real, cat, man. I apologize. I was like, it's cool, man. And they got in the car and they drove away. And I remember one of my boys came over afterwards, and he's like, yo, what the hell? I said, like, oh man, it was nothing. It wasn't anything important. He said, yo, man, I would have taught him a new one. I said, for what? I said, that's the problem with us black men. We go straight to the emotion. You got to think it out. Here's what would have happened. He would have made a move. I would have taken that shovel
and beat the fuck out of him and went to jail.
I would have beat him to hell with it, and I probably would have taken it and tried to decapitate him with it. Then I would have been on trial. The prosecutor would have looked at me, and here's exactly how this is going to go. One, how do I explain the judge killing somebody over snow? That's number one. Number two, the prosecutor, you're a combat veteran. You could have figured out a better way to handle that than how you just did it.
Mm-hmm.
Number three, are you serious? Why didn't you just walk away? See, and that's the problem. We get wrapped up in the emotions and the ego of it. And see, here's my thing. Do I have an ego? Absolutely. I'm a human being. But here's how I perceive everything as a whole. If tomorrow morning I get up and nothing you did changed anything in my world, I don't care about you. I don't care about what you say. I don't care about what you do. That's all that matters to me. That's all that matters to me. So do you want to call me a pussy for not fighting you? I can take that. I can take that because tomorrow I'll be back doing what I'm doing. You, if you keep carrying that path with you, you probably won't be in a while.
Yeah, because you're going to run across the right one that's going to give you that energy.
Exactly. Because it doesn't make a difference if you're in your 50s, your 40s, your 30s. If you're black and you come from the right neighborhood, everybody got taught the same thing. You're eventually going to run into somebody who's going to teach you that that's not how that's going to be played. And it always happens. So my thing is why, and the main problem with that is those dudes are usually the ones who have nothing to lose.
Yep.
For
and
me,
I'm quick to avoid a situation with a person that goes from 0 to 10 right quick. Because they have nothing to lose. If you get that upset about bullshit, you already had this plan. You were looking for trouble.
You were looking for it. Exactly. And like I said, for me, that's a no-brainer. To me, that's a no-brainer. So for, I just it's something that is black men we really, really have to work on. And I'll tell you the same thing I've told a couple of people on a few other streams. And you know this already because you've been on Savage's channel. I am black pill. I am black pill deluxe, as somebody likes to call it. I don't interact with women. I don't associate with them. I don't talk to them. I don't do anything with them. I have my own space in my own world, and I keep it that way. And I find myself that when I come across men who work within that framework, I put them in that same category, and I just stop talking to them, associating with them, etc., and so on. I have literally removed friendships I've had since I was 7 years old. And being in my 50s, pretty damn long time to know somebody.
Yeah, but you have to do it.
You have to do it. You have to do it because there, but for the grace of God, you're only as good as the top 5 people you surround yourself with.
And you know what? That I've been thinking about doing a stream about the law of attraction because black people need to learn the law of attraction. The law of attraction simply is you attract what you are. If you broke, you're going to attract broke people. If you hang around rich people, you're going to hang around rich people. So if we know that the law of attraction is real, we have to be careful about screaming the white man this, the white man that, because guess what we're going to bring into our lives? Everything that we just asked for.
Exactly.
Everything we said they're doing, we're actually inviting it to our lives by
And that's
saying,
exactly.
oh, the white man gonna kill us, the white man gonna do this, the white man gonna do that. Okay, that's your reality. It's not mine.
Exactly, because when that's one of the first things that that happened when I got back from the military. I came, like I said, I came back. The same people were doing the same thing. Still sitting on the same stoop. Still got a 40 ounce of old gold. Still sitting there with weed. And I came back, and everybody's like, "Oh man, you're back!" Yada yada yada. Yeah. So what's going on? And and this is, and they said the same thing when I left. Well, trying to do this, trying to do that. White man holding me down, yada yada. I'm like, okay, so I don't mean to be rude, but I don't see a white man sitting here forcing that 40 ounce bottle of old gold down your throat. I don't see a white man with the lighter making you strike up the match for the joint you're smoking. I don't I don't understand it. But I think one of the biggest problems is we haven't experienced enough. We have to get out of these neighborhoods that we call home to experience other opportunities, to learn that there are
Yes.
other things out there, to realize that, yo, realistically speaking, not everybody's out to get you. Don't get me wrong, you're not paranoid. There are some people out to get you, that's fact. But you can't walk around through life thinking that all of them are out for you. You can't walk around life being the perpetual victim. You can't walk around life blaming everyone for everything when you have done nothing. When you sit here and say, I got a business plan and I want to do this. Well, what are you going to do? Well, the white man held me down. Well, what did you do? Well, nothing. What do you mean nothing? Okay, you got a business idea. You got a business idea. Did you write a business plan? No.
Nope.
Did you write financials to show what kind of profit you would make? No. Did you get a CPA to review that? No. Did you try going to a bank, a lender, family, friends, whatever, to try and raise the funds to do it? No. So then how are you saying somebody's holding you down? You did nothing.
They told one person about it, and they felt like that person was obligated to help them.
Exactly. Which would be the flip side of what I was about to say next, which is myself being who I am and the things that I've achieved. I had for a time, at least until I cut them off, where it was the same nonsense every single time. Yo, when you make it, what I'm saying, come back to the neighborhood, what I'm saying, to help us out, what I'm saying, put it back in the community. Now, me, I grew up, I was a nerd. And when I say nerd, I'm talking about Steve Urkel level. I was that kind of dude. Okay, until I got in the military and they broke me out. But I was that nerd dude. So my response was, let me see if I get this straight. You fuck with me, make fun of me, beat me up, and pick on me my entire life for being what I am. But when I pull off what I set out to do, you want me to come back and give it. You want me to pay you for the privilege of fucking with me. That's literally what you just said to me.
Or even on a basic level, you want me to do all the work and come back and give you a handout.
Yeah. That's the very foundation of it. Absolutely. And again, we're going back to playing the perpetual victim.
Your story about me and you, like when you were talking about snowing, you said there was no question men did that. In my live stream, my last live stream was about why is it that men readily accept their gender roles, but when I tell a woman to fix me a sandwich or go cook for me, it's a problem.
Because they're winning.
And that's pretty much the base that's all I got out of it, because I was like,
because they're winning. I mean, they're winning. Look, people get upset, and I used to be one of them, about women acting the way they do and doing the things that they do, and it's uncalled for. It's not the nature of things. It's not how the rules are supposed to be played. But see, here's the thing: who in their right? I mean, they have the power. They're winning. Who in their right mind willingly gives up power?
No one.
So at the end of the day, by the time you throw in feminism mixed in with gynocentrism and then having power, they're not going to give that up. They're just not. They're just not. And like I said, it's not a question of being angry at them. It's just the way of things. But here's the thing. Again, Mesopotamia, Babylon, Egypt, Rome, okay, even Russia to some degree, and we're coming close to that ourselves. There's always a reset. Always. Always. And things will eventually flip back the way it was. Oh, there's going to be a lot of destruction in the process, but it will flip back. It always does, every single time. And that's not me wishing. That's looking at history. Look at it, read it, study it. It always happens. There is nothing new under the sun. So the question becomes is, what do you do when that moment comes? There'll be some of us who are prepared, but the vast majority won't.
Exactly. So what do you think that was religion a big thing coming up? Was religion a big thing when you were coming up as a child compared to now?
Uh, in my family,
Well, it's
it's
not just
difficult.
your family. You've been in the neighborhood, so you can kind of see what other families went to church,
It,
what
it
other
yeah,
families were religious, etc.
it was it was especially among the elders. It definitely was, no question to it. When you got to the because there's like three generations. There's the elders, then there's the ones after that, then there's me. The ones in the middle were my uncles, my aunts, etc., and so on. And then the one before that, the elders would be my grandmother, so on and so forth. The elders, yes, it was like it was so religious. It was like a religion of a religion that they had to go every Wednesday, every Saturday, every Sunday. They had to be there 6, 7, 8 hours a day. I mean, there were some of them that church would start at 8 a.m. and they'd still be there at 8 p.m. Yeah, it was just insane to me. Um, but yeah, it was big among them. With the generation that came after them, uncles, aunts, that kind of thing, it was so depending on who you were. Some of them did, some of them didn't. For the most part, from my experience, what I saw from that generation, it was predominantly the women, more so than the men. Uh, the women were there constantly and always making sure that they got there on Sundays and stuff like that. The men, every now and then.
Yeah.
And as far as it goes for my generation and what we did it, but we did it only because we were kids. Our parents told us we had to. Now, what we did after that, well, that becomes each individual's own story to tell. But for me, you know, I grew up. I grew up in a weird sort of way because my family was predominantly women, and the men who were there, with the exception of my grandfather, I lost him when I was like 7, 8 years old. But the rest of the men were cucks. I mean, calling it for what it is. No. I'm being honest.
I'm laughing because a lot of people don't know what cuckold is.
Yeah. They were cucks on so many different levels, and the women ran that family into the ground based on what my grandfather had established. And being the one of only two boys for my generation, myself and my cousin Thomas, um, myself especially, Thomas went along to get along. Me, I wasn't going for it because I know what my grandfather taught me. And they made my life a living hell. It didn't make a difference what I did, what I said, how I do it. I was always bad. I was always a terrible person. I was evil, etc. And these are literal words they would use to talk to me as a child. And
Wow.
and then reached a certain age, and my father died when I was a year and a half old, and he had left an inheritance for me because my father's side of the family was I wouldn't say well to do, but they were better off than most. Only to find out that my mother took it and used all of it. There was nothing. By the time I was 14, there was nothing. And I had I had gotten at about 11 and a half, 12, I had got molested by a school teacher. And it had been messing me up for like a year or two. And by the time I was 14, I had finally broke down and I couldn't carry it by myself anymore. I hadn't told anybody. And I started to tell my mother and uncles and stuff like that. And instead of asking, who was it? Let's go get charges done, yada, yada. Their response to me is like, well, we always thought you were gay anyway. You sure that's not the case?
Oh my God.
And that was 14. And from that moment forward, I left. I lived on the subway for a while. And I had a high school English teacher, Helen Kolsky, who listened to me, who helped me. And she adopted me. She's my mother now. And so
many black kids have that story about their moms. It's never the dad. The worst thing we say about our dad is he wasn't there. We don't say he spent all our money. He had us working, paying rent. We don't hear any of that shit. We hear that from moms, and it's always moms that when the child tells them, whether it's male or female, that they've been molested or abused, it's always the mother that brushes it off.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I've seen dads hear that shit and get incensed and be ready to go kill somebody.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry, please forgive me. Can I hold for a minute? I'll be right back.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Toxic Masculinity Show. I am your host, MoneyBoy Trey. Please like, share, subscribe, and follow me on all social media. The links are in the description box. Also, if you like the show and you would like to donate to help the show grow, there's a Cash App link and a PayPal link in the description box as well. And now that I'm on a hold, I'm going to tell a story about this dumbass bitch from last night who's a PhD. She comes on my post where I said that the WNBA has never made a profit, and she comes on with a screenshot that says, oh, they made $60 million in revenue. So I had to point out, revenue and profit are not the same things. You have 3 degrees and you don't know this. And this bitch want to continue to argue with me. Y'all know I'm a troll. I troll. I go. I play. I take a lot of disrespect without giving any back, because anytime I say something back to a black woman on Facebook, the motherfuckers put me in jail for 30 days. So I chilled. I was quiet. I played. And after about an hour, I was like, okay, I'm done. Please leave me alone. This bitch would not stop. I'm like, how are you going to be wrong and you still will argue? So she wouldn't stop. So I hit her up private and was like, look, we've had fun. I'm done playing. Please, at this point, you're harassing me. She wouldn't stop. So then I tell her, okay, well, since you won't stop harassing me, I'm going to inform your employer of what you're doing. And she still thought it was a game. She was playing, talking shit. Do it. Until she saw me actually do it. Then when I showed her what I did, oh, I think you went off the deep end. No, bitch, I'm just showing you that you hoes have to have consequences like everybody else. Like, you are a public figure. Well, I won't say you're a public figure. You work for Shelby County Schools. You are a teacher. You are an educator. You are not supposed to be carrying yourself on in public like this, especially when a person tells you to leave them alone. And I had people ask me, well, do you feel bad about telling her bosses them? I was like, no, because this same bitch will call me a coon, and I keep telling her I'd be careful about that, because I can do shit you can't do. I can't get fired. You can. She assumes because I don't have a fucking job under my Facebook page that I don't have any work. I said, ma'am, I work for me, just like you have your own mobile makeup company. I have my own business. I said, that's why I'm able to say what the fuck it is. So you can't tell anybody on me, but I can tell on you. And you went to school an awful lot. You got 3 degrees, and you're willing to throw that away on a conversation with a nigga that you hadn't seen in 20 years, and you were completely wrong on. But that's black women for you in 2020. So, Dina Vaughn, yes, I said your name. I gave you what you wanted. You thought I was playing. And hopefully, the rest of you black bitches will stop harassing people when they ask you to. We can play all day, but when a person asks you to stop, motherfucker, stop. We are back with Lawrence Guy, Dr. Lawrence Guy, my bad, PhD in philosophy, and we were talking about race relations from the past up to now.
Sorry for stepping away. I had to take
Oh,
care of something.
you good. I had to get a run off anyway.
But going back to what you were saying before I left about black mothers and how they interact with their children when they say something happened to them. I really don't know how to explain that. I don't know if it's a learned response. Black women in this country have had a lot of stuff done to them. A lot of stuff.
I would say we had more than them. They made examples out of us in public, not them. They didn't tear women apart with horses and shit.
No. I agree. I was just about to quantify that. I wasn't trying to diminish what we as men went through. It's just that it's a different type of what they went through. You're talking about a female who has spent 300-400 years being raped, molested, etc., and so on. Who
I think a lot of these women gave it up. Well, I think a lot of them gave it up because they wanted to be close to master.
It's quite possible. It's quite possible. As a matter of fact, it could very well be both. I don't see why it couldn't be both. But it's just that you build a certain type of resistance in your mind where you start to shake it off, and it's no big deal, get past it. And I think instead of learning from that and having empathy for someone else that may have gone through, especially your children, you internalize it and you try to make the child do what you did. Shake it off. It's not believable, yada, yada, yada. But then again, I've seen women do it for neither one of those reasons. I can't remember where it was, but I know there was a young lady had videotaped herself in the kitchen talking to her mother, explaining that her mother's boyfriend would come in the room at night. And instead of asking what the hell, what for, the mother went straight into, why would you say that? He pays the bills. You know, he makes sure we got money and et cetera and so on. And my thing is, okay, so at the end of the day, you just pimped out your daughter. Let's get down to the foundation of it. You just pimped out your daughter. It's okay for him to go in there and do that as long as he's paying the bills. Then there was another one where a young girl, I think she was 14, because the other girl was like 16 or something like that. But there was this young girl, 14, and she had reported to her school that her mother's boyfriend had raped her. And she was outside one day. Her friends had their camera, and her mother and her mother's sister rolled up on her, pinned her against the wall, and was beating her like it was a dude fight. And her friend filmed the entire thing on camera, literally. And here's the funny part about both those situations. When it came to talking to the police or talking to social services, neither mother got in trouble. Neither mother. Now here's the thing. Imagine if that was reversed and that was men who did that.
Off top, we'd have been in jail.
Easy right off the gate, 15. You would have got 15.
You didn't protect your child. Neglect, failure, or whatever they call it.
Right. And when I have and at least when I used to talk to them, when I used to have conversations with women, there are very specific things that I say to get an understanding of who I'm talking to. The first thing is they'll start talking about equal rights. Okay, here's the problem. There's two of them. First of all, there's no such thing. It doesn't make a difference if it's gender. It doesn't make a difference if it's race. It doesn't make a difference. There is no such thing as equal rights. Everyone has their own particular gifts that allows them to do things others cannot. There is no such thing. You are equating the wrong word with what you're trying to do. That's number
Take
one.
note, women. Take note, women. Take note.
Number two, as I had a conversation, do you have male or female friends? I have both. Which one do you have the most of? Well, I got one female friend, but all the rest of them are male friends. Okay, here's the reason why you have that. 2 points. The first point is there backup plans for whatever dude you have now? Number two, why is it predominantly more men? Well, because I don't trust women. Okay, so here's the section number, here's the part number two. If you don't trust your own kind, what makes you think I should?
Right, because females are quick to say, I don't hang with no bitches. I don't hang with no bitches. They behave.
Yeah. I mean, you literally sat in my face and told me you don't even trust your own kind, but yet you expect me to co-sign. That's not going to happen.
Facts.
That's just not going to happen. And this is not picking on anyone. This is looking at it from a logical, pragmatic point of view. If you're telling me that you have no female friends because women cannot be trusted, then you can't get mad at me when I say it.
Exactly. And like I had to tell my mom all the time, like, lady, you're no different than the women I talk about on my show. Like you won't answer a question, you make excuses for everything, and then you got the nerve to say, I don't have to answer any questions. That's women in general.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. And like I said, there's other instances of questions like for instance, well, I'm fighting for equality and equal rights. Really? Yeah, I am. Do you believe in equal rights? Well, no, I already told you equality is a false equivalency. So here's my question for you. And I'm still waiting for a woman to give me an answer on this. Here's my question. If you're fighting for equality, tell me, what right do I have that you don't? Just give me one. If you can give me one, I will co-sign everything with you. But just give me one. And she's sitting there and she's giving all these commentaries. Okay, well, equal pay. First of all, that's already been debunked. So let's stop with that right there out the gate. Okay, let's just stop with that right out the gate. Number two, they start going into this long tirade of what's happened to women over the centuries. To which my response is, okay, that's great, but what's happening right now?
Fucking
Are
what
you
happened?
are you going through that right now? No. Okay, so I'm asking you, give me one right that you're fighting for that I have that you don't and you're not allowed to. And I said, because see, here's the thing for me. I know which one it is. And then they look at me and it's like, excuse me? I said, I know which right that I have that you don't. But I can also tell you, you will never fight for it. And she's like, excuse me? I said, hey, think about it. And she's like, well, I don't know what it is. I said, it's simple. The draft.
The military draft. Savage brought that up as a reason to why we feel the 19th, and I agree with you.
I have watched feminist groups roll up on Capitol Hill 3 times when the military commanders wanted to initiate the draft for women as well as men, and they fought it every single time. Every single time. That is the only right that as men we have that they don't. And truth be told, it's not a right.
That's not a fucking right. They're forcing us to do some shit we don't want to do.
Exactly. But outside of that, there's not one single thing on this planet that you don't have the opportunity to do that I don't. And I said, so here's the argument. You're not interested.
I will give you one thing. I'll give you one thing.
What would that be?
They have the sole right to make a man a parent whether they want to be or not.
Yeah, but they're not fighting for that. They already got it.
They're trying to fight for abortion like a motherfucker. They're trying to fight for it like a motherfucker.
But that's not a right we have that they're trying to get. That's the point of my question. I want you to say you're fighting for equal rights. I want to know equal rights with men. That's what they say. So if I have my rights as a man, give me one right I have as a man that you don't, and you can't give me one. They can't. They simply can't. So, it becomes that situation where I have to explain to them and see, here's the thing. You don't care about equal rights. You care about equal outcomes. And that's why we're in the mess we're in now. Because the way it's supposed to work is you get out what you put in. But that's not what you want. You want everybody to win a trophy, whether they first place or last. You want equal outcome. You want to get up in the morning and you got a man who's just broke his back for 10 years trying to achieve something in a job. And because you're a woman, you walk in, you think you should have everything he has. You want equal outcome. You want equal outcome across the board without putting in any of the work or any of the consequences that came from it. It's the same thing when they try to argue about equal pay. It's been debunked so many times, it's insane. You cannot sit here and complain about equal pay when what you're asking for doesn't even match in comparison to what men do. And if you decide, if the vast majority of women decide that they want to be caretakers, cashiers, whatever have you may, nothing wrong with that. If that's your choice, then so be it. But you're not going to sit here and get up in the morning and try to play me thinking that you're supposed to get the same as a fireman. That's not going to happen. You're not going to get the same as a soldier over in Afghanistan. That's not going to happen.
I've noticed like women get paid more than men do in porn in other industries. Men never complain. We suck it up.
This is true. This is very true. This is very true. And that's why I said that's why I sit here and I love being a philosophy major. I just love sitting here watching how all of it's playing out. And like I told someone earlier today, it's going to be very interesting because we get to do something that we've only read in history books. We've read about the fall of Rome. We've read about the fall of Egypt, but we're about to sit here and watch the fall of us. We got
But
front row
what
seats.
will the fall? What will our fall look like? Because hell, we know those other empires have never really recovered.
And now that will this one.
So you think we're gonna have a drastic downfall like Egypt and just be like we were great once, or
Yeah, like I said, there's always a great reset. Now the question becomes is how long does that fall take? Because you got to remember with Rome, it took almost 100 years, maybe a little bit over. Okay, so what we could be seeing is the beginning of it. You look at you look at Turkey's currency devaluing in the double digits, and you see their inflation rise in double digits. You look at New York, you see the food costs have raised 33%. Okay, 6 months ago you saw a run on Chinese banks. A week ago you see American investors selling off the value of their dollar, which is going to decrease the fiat currency here. You see Walgreens in San Francisco shutting down because they can't keep up because people are so desperate to have something out there that they're robbing Walgreens.
they've been
IHOP,
they've been doing
IHOP
it in Memphis since the opioid epidemic started.
exactly 53 at the beginning of the current pandemic up until now, we've lost 53% of small businesses, and they won't be coming back. They won't. You look at the commercial real estate field, which is
Well,
one of
or do you
one of
mean
the
like
areas I'm in.
small? Do you mean like 53% of small businesses or like
Yes,
major
small businesses.
corporations?
I'm talking about small businesses. I'm talking
Well,
about small businesses.
those businesses might not recover, but like every day somebody opens up a small business.
That's true, but you also got to keep the statistics in mind. 53% of small businesses are gone. You have to remember the backbone of employment is generally from small businesses. That's number one. Number two, even the new businesses that come along, statistically speaking, 90% of them fail within the first 3 to 5 years. So they won't be here long regardless. Okay. Now
Do
it's
small businesses really employ a lot of people though? That most
they
small
do.
businesses that I know maybe have 2 or 3 employees, and one of them is the owner.
That's true. And in most cases that's the case, but you got to think about the full impact of that. Even if they're only employing two people, think about what I'm saying here. Two people at let's just flat. Two people at $30,000 each is their salary, right? Okay. First of all, that business is bringing income to that area just by being there. taxes, county, city, etc. Then you take in consideration the two people they employed. That's $60,000 that's being put back into buying stuff in the neighborhood, whether it be food, furniture, clothing. You're going to other local stores, putting that money back in that you just gave to whoever you employed. It's a circular thing. One feeds into the other. So when you start taking away, when you got a small business, you got two people who had to be laid off. So that's $60,000 that is no longer in the economy right out the gate. That's $60,000 that might have went to paying for child care. Now you got now you got a daycare center who lost money. You got
Dang.
Walmart. You got Walmart who lost money. You got a bank who can no longer have you got a bank who can no longer have fees they can charge people for having a bank account. The list goes on and on and on. The local grocery store.
I never thought of it like this. You do have a point. It is a
Yeah,
trickle down effect.
yeah. Maybe the family would go out once a month to like IHOP. Now IHOP has lost revenue. I mean, it just. I mean, I'm being very generalized and basic, but that's how it works. Now, with those two people being laid off, now that small business doesn't have enough people to maintain what it's doing. If they didn't already lose consumership by people not having money to begin with to go to them like they used to, so now that business gets shut down. So all the county, state, and local taxes that business would provide for the area is gone as well. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah. How do you feel about the opportunity zones that Trump has created, and why do you think black people haven't taken advantage of it, yet they complain about it and say, oh, that's only for white people? It's just gentrification.
One, he didn't create anything. That's been going on long before he got there. Especially if you look at the Buffalo Niagara area, they've had economic development zones for over 20, 25 years. So that's number one. He didn't create anything; it was already there. And that's not just not that area, all across this country.
Yeah.
As far as it goes for black people not taking advantage of it, there's a variety of reasons. In some cases, a lot of people don't know because they don't do the research. In other cases, they don't want to work for it. It's too much work. Why do it? The best example I can give you is a scenario I gave someone before. I have a business, and I want to give people opportunity to work there and create wealth for themselves. This is how it's going to go. I pick 10 people. I select 10 people. This is exactly how it's going to go. 8 of them are going to walk out because they don't want to do the work. Period. Right out the gate. That's just how it's going to be. That leaves me with 2 out of 10. Out of that 2, one of them, halfway through, when he's almost there and at the end to succeed, is going to give up because he don't want to push any further. That leaves me with one person who's going to stay the course. That's how I look at it.
Well, that is, I don't know, because I mean, if you look around and you see all the people that are being indicted for PPE fraud and shit like that, it's just black people. So we can spend the time and the effort to do illegal shit, but we won't try to do legal shit. That baffles me.
Because it's always the thought of easy money. Like we established earlier, it's always taking the easy way out. It's always taking the easy way out. And that's not just a black thing. Just to put that out there, it's not just a black thing. But it's always the thought of easy money, taking the easy way out, and getting the most for doing the least. And that's something else that I think has gone horribly wrong with us as a people.
Is that human nature though, or is that just a mindset we've adopted?
It's a human nature thing, but I think we've taken it to a new level. It's definitely a human nature thing. I think you'll find that no matter where you go. I just think for us as a people, we've taken it to a whole new level, especially when we start dealing with the concept of victimhood and wozy, wow, woe me. Because here's my argument when I'm talking to brothers. You sit here and you talk about how it can't be done, how you're blocked, and et cetera, and so on. But at the end of the day, how do you validate that? when you say, excuse me, when you sit here and talk to someone like me, I did it. So you can't, so you can't say it's not possible. Well, you're an outlier. No, I'm not, because I can give you names of other people who've done it. So you
Exactly.
can't, so you can't sit here and tell me it's not possible or you're being held back. I have the same obstacles you do. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. I did what I had to do to make it happen, and that's that. Or as we always like to call it, I hustled.
Yep. Because I tell elders all the time, I say, you and somebody in your neighborhood grew up in the same exact circumstances and situations, yet
Mhm.
you made it out and they didn't. I said, so at some point, it comes down to personal choice.
Yeah, personal choice and personal thought processes. And like I said, pain is a great motivator. You know, I mean, look, I got picked on and beat up all the time. Okay, I had my family not believe me. The women put me through hell, etc., and so on. I had to make a choice. Do I stay here and live in this reality and buy into what they're selling, or do I make a conscious decision to get up, get out, and go figure out something else? And that's what it always comes down to. Like you said, personal responsibility. You have to make the choice. When you sit here in front of me, oh, I was molested by all my cousins and aunts and uncles and yada, 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 and all that good stuff. I have empathy for you. I do. But what I'm not going to do is co-sign the fact that that happened when you were 12 and you're 47 now. That's a whole
Yes.
different. That's a whole different kind of beast. And I'm not trying to make light of the situation. Speak as a victim myself. I'm not trying to make light of the situation because I had to do the same thing. I'm not just saying it to say it. I had to do the same thing. Because let's be real. Generally, what happens when a young man is done like that, he ends up growing up to be that type of dude himself.
Hmm.
But I had to make a choice. Do I co-sign that or do I get up and decide to be something different? And that's for everybody, male or female. It doesn't make a difference. And I think that's one of the things that's really, really missing. No more personal accountability or personal responsibility, and everybody wants to play the victim. Um,
And that's rampant in the black community. Everybody wants to be a victim. Like the female that I was talking about last night. Everything was cool when she was throwing insults and all of that shit. But the moment that I said, hey, look, stop, and she didn't, and I said, well, since you didn't stop, I'm going to let your employer know that you're harassing people. Then she became a victim. Oh, you're on the deep.
mm,
Oh, I think you've went off the deep end and you need help. Like, really? All you had to do was stop, and the shit would have ended at this. But women don't know when to shut the fuck up.
it's interesting. It's interesting you said that because if I remember correctly, last night Savage put up something similar to that with someone who
Hmm.
came into the comment section
And
and
dropped a dumbass comment
yeah,
and then got
yeah,
offended when he addressed it, talking about, oh, I didn't give you permission. Like, what the fuck? I don't
yeah,
need.
yeah.
And then I even told the chick, and that's what's baffling me because this chick has 3 degrees. And I'm sitting to myself and saying, are you willing to risk everything you worked for a conversation that you were wrong on? Because the conversation was, I brought up how the WNBA is trying to say they deserve equal pay, and I'm like, how do you deserve
Yeah, I saw
equal
that.
pay when
Yeah.
when your fucking league has never made a profit? And she tries to put a screenshot up saying that revenue they made 60 million. I was like, ma'am, I said, I ain't trying to insult you or nothing, but revenue and profit aren't the same things. I said, you have 3 degrees and you don't know the difference between this. And she tried to make an excuse for that. Well, I'm a music major. I was like, I don't give a fuck. You took high school economics where they taught you what revenue and profit was. And I said, I'm sure you took an undergraduate class in economics that taught you the same thing.
Well, see, here's the problem. Here's the problem. Okay, let me tell you a little secret about degrees. And I'm pretty sure if I have any peers who know me that are listening to this, I'm probably going to get phone calls tomorrow. But here's the
Fuck.
secret. Here's the secret to degrees, and I want everybody who's listening to you to take this to heart and take it as a truth. They don't mean shit, and I'm saying that as somebody who has a couple of them. Okay, they
Right. I
don't.
tell my
They
mom that all the time.
what degrees do, no more, no less, is it allows you the opportunity to walk in certain circles you wouldn't normally get without it. But outside of that, outside of that, all it does is tell people that you're good at studying. That's all it really does. You're good at studying and you're good at remembering what you study. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I don't say that to diminish anybody who has them. I just want people to understand, we have to keep practical and common sense. Okay. Just because somebody has doctor by their name does not mean they know everything. It doesn't mean that they're right all the time. They wear a uniform does not mean they're right all the time. It just doesn't. So that's why it might have had more weight back in the day, but nowadays it means nothing because people are getting them a dime a dozen, and they're getting them for things that make no sense. Gender studies. How does that equate to real life?
I don't know.
And I'm not saying it to be a smartass, because the same thing applies to me. Realistically speaking, a philosophy degree has got me nothing. The best it can ever do for me is make me a teacher, and I
Yeah.
don't want to be a teacher. No offense to my mother, but I don't want to be a teacher.
My
But
mom was a teacher as well.
yeah. So my adopted mother retired high school English and guidance counselor. Um, but it's just paper. It's just paper to show off at the end of the day. Show off and to make money for the university. Um, and outside of that, and that's just my personal interpretation of it. That's why when we were talking, I said Lawrence works just fine. Um,
No, but
I
you
mean,
still, I have to give any black man that takes the time to go educate themselves, I have to give them their props. You earned it, and therefore I will call you Dr. Lawrence Guy. You earned it.
no,
Like even the chick that I argued with last night, I don't take it away from her, but I was just pointing out, just because you have 3 fucking degrees doesn't mean that somebody can't know something that you don't. I tell my mom this all the time. She feels like because she has a bachelor's degree, she's smarter than me and she does shit that I can't do. But I'm like, Mom, you don't even know how to fucking drive. So that's one thing that I know I can do that you can't. But she
yeah.
won't give me my props.
Yeah, and it is funny because I have a lot of young brothers on other streams who write in the chat, or they'll come up on the stream and they'll talk to me, and I'm listening to what they're going through with both their either with a single mother or with both their mother and father present, and it's difficult. It's difficult, and a lot of them thank me uh, for being honest about what I feel on things and what I think, and it's appreciated. I get that, but I always tell them the same thing I've always taught my children. Look, it's great that you hear me. It's great that you like what I say, but at the end of the day, I'm like anybody else in the street. Trust me, but verify. Okay,
Yep.
nothing about those degrees, nothing about the way I talk or the points that I'm making matter unless you do the research yourself. Because at the end of the day, what I read could be the same thing you read, but we walk away with different interpretations. Do the work. Do the work. Get in the habit of it. You know. Um. So it's 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 a difficult thing to watch, especially for me and my generation, because being older, we dropped the ball. We did.
I'm glad you
We,
admit that because most elders.
yeah, I know. A lot of those young men have told me the same thing. They've told me the same thing. And that's what I'm saying about being practical. Because until everybody's being practical and everybody looks at the truth for what it is, we can't fix anything. And realistically speaking, my generation, which technically is the boomers, we dropped the ball. We did. Now, in some cases, some of us did it purposely. In other cases, some of us didn't have anybody to teach us better. I was one of those. But
Explain the
but
purposely part.
but huh?
Explain the they some of us did it purposely part.
Oh well, some of them grew up to be male feminists and did it on purpose. They worked right alongside with women and other people to do it. It's just that simple. It's a purposeful choice. And then, like I said, there are some of us who didn't have anybody to teach them, like myself. But here's the thing about that: that's still no excuse. Because just like I said earlier about the person who went through whatever they went through, at the end of the day, not having somebody to teach me when I was 12 gives me no excuse for being in my 30s and still co-signing. It gives me no excuse for being in my 40s and co-signing. So I'm just as guilty as the person who started it from Jump Street. But once you reach a certain point and you start to look at everything for what it is from its practical perspective, you start to realize where you went wrong. Like one gentleman asked me before, he's like, well, why is this so important to you? I said, because I have to fix this. And he asked me, fix it. What are you talking about, fix it? I said, because it's a little bit of a redemption thing.
Yeah.
I know in my lifetime, I have convinced other brothers marriage was good. I have convinced them, do what the woman says, happy life, happy wife, and all that nonsense. I'm guilty of it as well. So now here I am in my 50s, and I've learned the truth of everything. Whether you want to call it red pill, purple pill, black pill, I don't care what you want, MGTOW, call it whatever you want to, I don't care. But at the end of the day, I've come to realize the truth of things, and I can see it for what it is now. And to some degree, myself personally, there's a redemption aspect in here, that as many as I sent to the gallows, I have just as much responsibility to save as many from going there again. And that's how I look at it.
I feel
And being of the older generation or elder or uncle or whatever we're calling it, that's my job. That's my job. That's what remains for me of what I have left on this planet. And like I've said many a times before, even if it's only one that I save, I'm good. I'm good.
That's why I talk to my kids all the time saying, I know I have 4 baby mamas, but I fucked up. I have no problem telling my kids or anybody else that listens to me, I fucked up. Having 4 baby mamas is not the way to go. Sure, I pulled it off and I've made it work to where we have minimal drama, but that is not the ideal circumstance. I regret not being in the house with all of my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something women will not say. Like all my baby moms have other kids. I've never heard them tell my sons that, hey, this is not the way to go. You shouldn't do that.
And they're
I
not going
want to tell them that.
Well, and they're not going to, because they're part of the sisterhood. They have to keep it going. They need fresh blood for the next year, the next generation, 6 out for a dozen. Whether it's turning our boys into male feminists or whether it's teaching the daughters how to use the same tactics they used over the years, they have to keep the system going, because and this is not just a black thing. This is a system thing, because they realize, and this is why they've been so loud lately. They're realizing there are more black pills than they thought. They're realizing there's more MGTOW than they thought. They realizing that more men are awake and more men are telling the truth to other men about what's going on. That's why they've been so loud, especially within the last year or two. And that's why they've been hitting so hard. Feminists, when I say they, I'm talking about feminists and all those that work around that. That's why they've been coming so hard. And when they realized it wasn't working, if you notice, they started creating something new this past year called cancel culture.
Yep.
You know, yeah. So I mean, right now what they're doing is they're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, because they know, based on what we've seen this year, this is nothing in comparison to the first quarter of next year. And by the end of first quarter next year, and then we jump into June, this right here, this is what's just been happening the last 6-7 months. This is a vacation.
Right. So, question: were there a lot of were black people allowed to be police officers when you were coming up? And the second part of that question is, why is it that we as black people complain about police brutality so much, but we push our kids away from doing that job? If we had more black police officers, then we can't actually call every officer involved incident racist. So why won't we push our kids to police, but we complain about the race relations that we have with police?
Well, to your first question about whether or not police were allowed to be hired, yeah, they were. As a matter of fact, we still had, when I was growing up, we still had cops that walked the beat. They literally walked the neighborhood like a regular police officer, not in a squad car driving by. As a matter of fact, my uncle was a lieutenant detective, homicide and vice. My other two uncles were auxiliary police officers. Another cousin was a correction officer. I served as an investigator under Assistant Commissioner Carrington in the fraud division in New York. And when I was a kid, the officer that walked the beat was Officer Naya Bongo. Very cool brother, very cool brother. So yeah, we had him. I mean, we definitely had him. As far as it goes for um, blacks being police officers themselves, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's one of those things where they think if you become one, you're kind of a traitor.
I mean, I know that's what we teach, but it kind of contradicts the whole. Well, you know, we were the police. White officers are out to get us, but then we tell our kids not to be the police. Fuck the police. Uh, some shit to me is just like common sense, but it seems to escape everyone else.
Well, to some degree, when we become police officers, we're no longer black. We're blue. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we follow it. It's the gang initiation. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm assuming. I'm assuming because I really don't know. I'm assuming it's just from that perspective. Once you become a police officer, you're white officers are still allowed to be white officers. Black officers are just allowed to be officers. You know what I
Until
mean?
it's a family member that needs your help, and then you're the police. I know
Exactly.
my brother a cop.
Yeah, yeah. So it's that kind of situation. As a matter of fact, I saw that play out with one of my childhood friends, John Alexander, police officer himself in New York. I've seen that play out between him and his family, and being caught in that situation between being a black person in his family and being an officer of the blue. And it's a hard place to be. It's a hard place to be. But again, you made that choice and swore that oath.
Yeah,
You
but I
know,
mean, we don't push our kids. We don't push our kids to be lawyers, judges. We don't push them to do anything in the judicial system. Yet we talk about how racist the judicial system is.
because again, it's easier to play the victim. See, here's the thing. When you play the victim, here's what it requires: sitting down and talking, or yelling, whichever one you choose. But that's it. But to do the other stuff, it requires school, 4 years of college. You see what I'm saying? To get a bachelor's degree, then another 4 years to get a Juris Doctorate to become a lawyer. Depending on what you're doing medical wise, it could be anywhere from 8 to 12 to 14 years to be a
Yeah,
doctor, depending on what type you pick. You know what I mean? It requires work. It requires work. So instead of putting in the effort and going out there and doing what needs to be done, it's a lot easier to sit and complain to the point where you make so much noise that people will start giving you stuff for free. That's why black people in this country will always be behind any black person from another country who came here because they get it. They get it. The goal is not to come in here and win everything. The goal is to do what's necessary, and then you turn around and you put it into your children so they can go to the next level. Then their children can go to the next level. That's the concept of generational wealth.
and
See,
that's what I tell people all the time because they're
yeah,
like, "Hey, man, what can we do as black people to get together and move forward?" I said, "The only thing that I can do is establish wealth for me and pass it down to my kids." I said, "That's how
exactly.
I can help." I said,
That's right.
"Anything that comes after my success, I can pick and choose where I want to help. But
Yeah.
other than that, my responsibility is to make sure my family is okay."
Yeah, and here's the thing about that. If you literally decided to go across this entire country and you take in numbers of blacks who were from this country and blacks who came from another country, I'm pretty sure it'll be about 10 to 1. You know,
Nigerian versus
and
Americans.
yep, yeah, and it's not just Nigerian. It could be Nigerian, it could be Jamaican, it could be Trinidad Tobago. 10 to for every 10 of them you've seen that were successful, you'll only see one of us.
Hmm.
And I'm generalizing here. I'm generalizing.
I mean, but your generalization is based off what actually happens. Because hell, I have Nigerian friends who've told me when they got to this country, their parents told them not to hang around black people
Oh yeah,
because
oh yeah.
of the stereotype that black people have, that they're lazy and they don't want to work for shit.
Oh, it was yeah. Because I went through that with my second wife. Because my first wife was white. My second wife was from Trinidad and Tobago. So yeah, I've heard those stories. Not only have I heard them, I've had them in my face told to me. I've had my second wife's mother tell me point blank, I didn't want her being involved with an American. As far as I'm concerned, the way you guys act and what you do, you're violent, you're lazy. She ran the list down.
The
She,
full list of stereotypes.
oh no, she went nuclear. And then I was like, well, I understand that, but from my perspective, I don't fit that category. And she asked me to prove it. So what I did is I called my mom, and we set up dinner, and then we went over there and we walked in, and she met my mother for the first time. So for her to walk in and see a 4'11", blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jewish woman, you know,
Threw her
we,
off.
she's like, wait a minute, this is your mother? This is my mother. So
Right.
you were adopted? Yes, I was. And then all of a sudden it changed, because now it's like, okay, I didn't grow up in that kind of environment where she thought I fit the normal criteria of what they think black people are: ghetto people running around screaming, selling drugs, yada yada yada. And it's unfortunate that it had to come to that to make a point, but I couldn't necessarily disagree with where she was going with it, because where I grew up, in the neighborhood I grew up in, I cannot lie, that was pretty much 99% of the people who were there. I mean, I couldn't be,
Stereotypes exist for a
yeah,
reason because the
yeah,
shit happens.
yeah. Like I said, it's a sad thing to acknowledge, but I couldn't debate her. The only thing I could do was show her the difference. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
So, do you think religion is a hindrance or a help to black people when it comes to a victim mentality?
In this particular instance, I think it's a hindrance.
Elaborate.
If you look at the well, first of all, I'm a Hebrew Israelite. Um, and
I'm atheist myself, and
okay,
I'm still on the fence about whether it's a hindrance or a help, because I know coming up, me going to religion classes 5 days a week, mass twice a week, and then on the weekends with my family, I know I stayed out of a lot of trouble because I was in fear of hell.
well, see, with me, here was the thing. In my birth family, I grew up Baptist. When I got adopted, I grew up in a Jewish household for the latter part of my life. Then I myself personally, about 4 or 5 years ago, I became a Hebrew Israelite. Now, before I go any further, I just want to make something clear, because I get this a lot. So just in case, please please do not think as a Hebrew Israelite I'm what people like to believe, hang out on street corners decked out in cosplay and screaming people are going to hell and dying because of the color of their skin. I'm not that type. So I just want to make that clear before I go any further, because I get that a lot. People seem to think I'm in that perspective. Excuse me, in that range. But I try to explain to people, looking at it properly, every group, religious wise, regardless of what it is, has different factions and types within it. So I just want to make sure people understand that I'm not associated with that group in that capacity. Um, Now on to the religious thing. I think I think religion has hampered us considerably, because truth be told, Yahushua, or Jesus, as people want to call him, Jesus did not come to bring reality. See, Jesus did not come to bring religion. He came to bring a way of life, a spirituality, a way of living in harmony and accordance with both yourself the immediate people around you, society, and the world as a whole, and most especially in conjunction with and towards him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, looking at the current state of, say, Christianity, for instance, it is wholly removed from that very concept. It is more, in my perspective, about dogma and about holding people to certain rules and regulations that they themselves who are preaching it don't even live by. I also believe that when it comes to Black churches especially, feminism runs rampant through it. So you're not going to get, you're just not going to, you're just not going to get anything positive out of that.
And that's weird to me as well, because we typically in Black churches don't have very many female pastors. So how is feminism able to run wild?
Because the vast majority of people in Black churches are women, and therefore they exert their will as women on that church. There is something to be said when you have a pastor who's married and he's trying to oversee and teach his flock, so to speak, but the women are only there to make attempts to be his new woman. And I'm not saying that's all cases. I'm just talking about the ones that I've seen, because I have actually.
It happens in every church. That shit's normal. It happens in every church.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. I've seen it. I have personally seen it. Where women, will literally go out of their way that whatever wife that pastor or minister has to slowly but surely erode away her authority or relationship with him to circumvent and put herself in that place of position so she can have that title with him. And don't get me wrong, it works both ways, because the pastors themselves get up every Sunday and speak on the pulpit about doing the right thing, but yet he's doing a couple of women in his congregation. So this is not a male or female thing. It's a people thing. No, it's not even a people thing. It's a sinful thing. That's what it is. It's about sin. You're committing sin while trying to preach not to. But I think it's been a hindrance, because one of the most important things, and I'm sorry, I just realized I'm babbling a little bit. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, bro. You're fine.
Here's the thing. I don't think, as a people, we were taught how to read the Bible. We were taught to read the Bible, not how to read the Bible. We're taught specific phrases, specific sections, but nobody's ever told us to read the entire thing to understand its true meaning. You can quote "do unto others as you would have those do unto you," but if you don't read the entire chapter, you won't understand it. He's only talking about certain circumstances, situations, or people. That's what I'm saying. We're taught to read it, but not how to read it. So I think that's a big issue. That's a big issue. I could probably explain that a little bit better, but I can't seem to find the words right now.
What's the difference between the Jewish religion and the Hebrew Israelites religion, and why can't those two groups come together?
Because because it's a fundamental difference. It's a fundamental difference.
Is that fundamental difference based on color?
That's part of it. One's color, the other one's execution. And here's the thing about it: it does, even if you looked at them individually on their own, they still have the same problem within their own sections. If you look at the Jewish faith, you still have the same problem. You'll have those who are messianic, believe in Jesus. You'll have those who don't. You'll have those who are Hasidic, who believe in following the letter of the law, the Torah, and nothing else. Then you'll have those Reformed Jews who, don't really take it either way, just going through life as is. And you turn around and you look at Hebrew Israelites, you have the same thing. You have the same thing inside their own, just like I was explaining a minute ago with myself. There are Hebrew Israelites like me. There are Hebrew Israelites not like me. There are Hebrew Israelites, like I said, who are dressed in cosplay on the corner telling white people they're going to be, handmaidens and slaves, and it's just every group has their aspects to it where different people are taking interpretations their own way. But as far as it goes for the fundamental difference between the two, it's because where Hebrew Israelites are concerned, the theory is that book wasn't written for Jews.
I thought they were the same, though.
No, they're not. They're not.
Please explain the difference, because I know that I have always thought that Jews and Hebrews or Israelites were the same. So I know I'm not the only one that thought this. So could you please explain the difference?
They follow the same teachings, but they're not the same people. That's the difference.
Well, because one's white and one's black, and that's one thing that I've never understood about them. Because if you're Christian, doesn't matter what color you are, you're accepted. If you're Muslim and you kind of black, you're accepted. But if you're Jewish and you're Hebrew Israelite, they clash. And I think it's simply because of color.
Well, and again, it depends on who you're talking to. Because I know there's a pastor, I believe Mississippi. He's a Hebrew Israelite, but he allows all people in his congregation, black, white, etc., and so on. That's why I was saying every group's got different ways of doing stuff. And then you have some Jewish communities where there are black Jews. As a matter of fact, not to be funny, but let's go back a way. Sammy Davis Jr.
I know he was Jewish.
Yeah. Sammy Davis Jr. was Jewish. He converted.
Do you think that was because of his association with Sinatra?
Well, Sinatra was Italian, not Jewish.
Well, aren't most? Well, yeah, I think Italians are mostly Catholic, aren't they?
Roman Catholic, to be exact.
You know what? In my life of Catholicism, the most interesting one I found was Greek Orthodox.
It's interesting. But they're very exclusionary, though.
Yeah, I think all religion is exclusionary, but like I said, in my time of being a Catholic, I like it. It was something about the Latin and the way that the Greek Orthodox held their mass that just stuck out to me compared to the traditional way that I learned Catholicism.
Yeah. Well, I dated a pretty good number of Catholics in my lifetime. So it's
we're not, black Catholics are not really a thing in the United States. Like, there's only one black Catholic church in Memphis, and it's been the only black church my whole 37 year Catholic church.
Well, that's true. The vast majority of those are in other countries, from what I've seen. So I don't even know how to answer that, to be honest with you. I don't know why that is. But it's true. The vast majority of black Catholic church are generally not in this country at all.
Now, I'm traditionally against the way that the Hebrew Israelites deliver their message, but if I was a black person, I feel like I would lean more towards Islam or Hebrew Israelite than any other thing. And I just don't. Religion is a tricky thing.
That's because they're pulling on, and whether they want to admit it or not, it is true. They're pulling on the concept of using a nationalistic undertow to their teachings. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of the conversations I had before with one of the guys who like to do the street corner thing. First of all, if you're following the tenets of the Torah, Old Testament, and the New Testament as a whole, here's the thing. If you're following those teachings, the first question becomes I remember correctly that there was only one person who was ever allowed to count the head of the Most High's people, and that was Moses. And that's because he commanded Moses to do it. Outside of that, there's always been a tenet that said you are not to count his people, period. So just by you standing on the corner saying who is and who isn't, you're counting his people. So you're sinful right there. Number two, if you want to go with the revelations aspect from scripture, where it says, you know, those who are evil will be destroyed. There's also a section in there you keep missing where he says other nations will bow to the people of Israel and say, your God is mighty and is the one true God. So if other nations are going to survive to some degree, who are you to sit there and tell them that they're going to hell? You can't pick out those people.
Mm-hmm.
You're literally sitting there telling a particular white person that they're going to hell for being white. How do you know they're not part of that group that's going to survive and serve? Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm explaining it right, but I'm.
Oh yeah, you good. You
Okay.
good.
You know, there's just fallacy in the execution of what's being said. Now, don't get me wrong. Here's the thing: if you are going to use scripture, you have to understand something. 2/3 of the world are going to be destroyed. That's what they all say. Okay, and I believe it. I do. But what they fail to understand is that if you're sitting there and you're saying the largest population on this planet are people who look like us, then that means the vast majority of that 2/3 who's dying is us.
Mm-hmm. This is kind of
That's a whole different kind of thing. No, brother, no, we can't sidestep that, man. We can't sidestep that.
well. Here's my problem with the whole 2/3 prophecy. We are all supposed to be God's children, so God is okay with eliminating 2/3, 66% of His people because of what? Because of where they were born? Because that typically decides what religion you are, what region of the world you're born in.
Well, the interesting part is that where if you look at it from Genesis all the way to Revelations, here's the one constant that remains. Israel belongs to him. Period. That is his bride. Okay, his words, not mine. Israel and the people of his, they are his bride. They are his people. They're his nation that sit above all others. Now, I'm not going to argue.
But do you see the contradiction in that? God created everybody, but God created everybody, but He created a special set just for Him.
Yeah. I look. The contradiction of it is there. I can't debate that. I can't debate that at all. Yeah, like I said, and I'm not trying to get out of it because I really don't know how to answer it. I really don't. The only thing I can do is from a faith perspective, take in the knowledge that if he made all of them and he wants to select a particular people to be his favorite, I'm not one to challenge it. That's the best I can do.
Hey, I'm not mad at you because at least you're honest. Most people aren't honest and won't say they don't know. They will make an excuse for it.
Oh no! I can't do that. I can't do that because if I did that, I won't be living in the way he wants us to live. Truth is imperative. Truth is imperative. Truth and faith is imperative. So, and not only that, but there's no shame in it. That's another thing we have a problem with as a people. Saying you're wrong is not the end of the world, man. saying you're wrong and saying you don't know is not the end of the world. I'm good with it. I'm absolutely good with it because it's going to work out one of two ways. I'm going to continue not knowing, or I'm going to run across something or someone who can explain it to me.
And I don't know it.
Right, and you never know who's in the chat that's listening that could explain it for you. You know what I mean? So that pride in not wanting to be wrong and all that's got to go out the window. You can't move forward like that anyway. Just as a human being, you, regardless of what color or gender, you just can't move forward as a human being if you can't accept that. If you can't accept being wrong, then it's gonna be a long life for you, and not a good one. But yeah, I have no problem doing that, and it makes no difference who it is. I mean, I can't begin to tell you how many times I've sat with Savage, man, and we're having conversations on this panel, and yo, he cuts me with the quick.
Yeah, me and Savage cannot have religious conversations.
And I'm like,
we can't do it.
Yeah, and I'm like, and then we'll agree to disagree, and then like I said, I do to him just like I tell everybody to do to me: trust but verify. And then I go do the research. And the next time I came on this thing, we were talking for a little bit, and then there was a pause. I said, "Yo," he's like, "What? You got me." He's like, "What are you talking about?" Yo, the thing we talked about the other day, yada yada yada. He said, "Yeah." I said, "You were dead right." And
He's
Hey,
never given me that credit because I told his ass up on what the rod of correction meant, and he would not give me
oh, okay.
my props.
Nah, but like I said, the truth is absolutely imperative, and it should never make a difference where or who it's coming from, as long as it's true. And when I say true, I don't mean like, well, this is my truth or my perspective. No, there's no such thing. Truth stands on its own, regardless. So yeah, like I said, it should never matter who it comes from or how you got it. As long as you got it, that's what matters, and you act accordingly.
Hmm.
Um, so and that's another big thing, especially with us as black men. There's this ego thing, man, where the pride gets so raised up, you just can't say you wrong. You sit there for 2, 3 hours on a stream, knowing full well 5 brothers have disproved you already, but you still want to hold on to it. I'm like, wow.
Like Dina Vaughn, PH.D. did last night because she didn't know the difference between revenue and profit. Oops.
Yeah, I didn't see that, so I couldn't even speak on
I
it.
know.
But,
I'm just being petty right now and doing it because
oh,
I'm biased.
oh yeah, but yeah, it's something we definitely have to work with. It's definitely something I have to work with. And like I said, it goes on both sides. With men, it's our ego and the pride of not being able to admit, when we're wrong, or asking for help, or hey, yo, brother, how do I figure this out because I can't get it? And it works equally on the other side with the women, in the sense that you can't tell them nothing because they got all the answers. Why? Because I'm woman. No, you got to give me something better than that, kid. you got to you got to give me something better than that. And like I said, it's both sides for different reasons, but it's both sides.
As a Hebrew Israelite, do you celebrate Passover and why?
Well, I celebrate Passover, yeah, for the obvious reasons. It's the raising and return of our King.
Well, I asked you that because I heard an interesting perspective the other day where the gentleman said that Passover is pretty much the celebration of killing African males.
I've never heard that before.
Well, I didn't either until the other day, and I was like, well, it kind of makes sense because the Egyptians were African males. But and before he said that, I've made several posts that were saying like, when God sent those plagues to Egypt, they affected the Israelite people too, so they were punished as well. And so that never made sense to me. I was like, they got punished just like the Egyptians because they were there.
Well, they were required to mark their doorways with lamb blood so that whatever happens passes over them. I
Yeah,
know
that
that.
was the final plague though. But the locusts, the water turning into blood, the famine, that affected them as well, didn't it?
Well, that's true. Yeah, just being there alone would have had them be affected.
Hmm.
That's true. That's true. But did he give anything of note on where he got that from?
No, that's just he just pretty much was saying because Egyptians were African, it was it was the death of African males. Which he has a point, but he has a point. But I also agreed with the other people that were saying, well, it wasn't that they were celebrating African males, but at the end of the day, it kind of is what it is. It's y'all's deliverance, but people had to die for y'all's deliverance. So I can kind of see it from both sides. It's just another interesting thing about religion that I heard, and I was like, I can see both sides of it. That's why it's kind of like with when I asked you about was religion a hindrance or a help. I'm on the fence because in my life I could see how when I was younger I didn't do a lot of shit because I feared hell. Now I just don't do fucked up shit because I know morally it's wrong to me, and I wouldn't want. I don't want to do morally wrong shit.
I really don't know what to say to that. I've never heard that before.
Me neither until the other day. It's just I'm saying like it's very interesting. That's why I'm not as hard on religion as I used to be. Because when I was in my pro-black phase, I was at war with Christianity and all the other shit. Now I understand the good that it does in people's lives as long as they're not religious zealots. If you're religious, I can handle you. If you're a zealot, you kind of overboard on the fringe, and that turns me off.
Yeah.
And I know you and I've had that. I know we've had a couple conversations about religion, and we managed to pick up where we left off. No ill will, nobody trying to diminish the other, and it's just a conversation, which is why I created my platform as well, to show Black people that even if you don't agree, you don't have to tear the other person down and say they ain't shit and all of the other stuff that we typically do to people that don't agree with us, like we do with Black conservatives. Black conservatives are the scourge of the earth right now to Black people.
Yeah, I know. I'm a conservative. Yeah, I know. I've listened to a lot of streams with that, but it's the same thing that it always is, and it's funny because it turns out being one of those things where it's like white people always talk about Black people not being this, not being that, until they meet one and realize, oh, they're not all bad.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So it's the same thing. It's just because like when I first came into the space, a lot of brothers didn't want to talk to me because I was older. They thought I was going to be like all the older brothers and lie to them and play games and push a narrative that didn't apply. And the same thing with the conservative aspect. I got all that, but once everybody started talking to me and getting to know me, they was like, okay, this brother is not like that. So it's just one of those things. You got to give somebody an opportunity to prove themselves, right or wrong. But as far as it goes for the thing with the Passover thing, I found an article from 2013 at the Huffington Post where it speaks on it. So I'm going to be reading that tonight. I definitely want to see what that's about, because I've never heard that before. And it's by a rabbi.
And I mean, I never celebrate. Like I said, I grew up Catholic. I knew about it, but I never celebrated it because I didn't know how to celebrate it. Like,
Well,
how do you celebrate it without putting animal blood on your door? How do you go about celebrating it?
Well, it was celebrating the concept, not literally reenacting the entire thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, some people do reenact it, but
Well, what do you personally do to celebrate it? Do you just acknowledge it? Do you pray? What do you do?
I acknowledge it. I spend the day in prayer. I have a cedar plate, which is certain types of food on the plate that represents different things. Herbs, bitter herbs, eggs,
Oh,
so on
so
and so
you
forth.
I was just about to ask you that about the unleavened bread. So you actually follow the tenets. I'm not mad at that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's everything. That's everything. It doesn't make a difference if it's Passover, Sukkot, Yom Kippur. I follow all of them.
But most people don't follow the stuff that they believe. That's my problem with a lot of religious people. Like, y'all do not follow what y'all believe, and then y'all are in a disagreement because some people follow the Old Testament, some people follow the New Testament. And I'm like, if y'all can't agree on something, how do y'all expect to convert somebody?
Well, here's the thing. You're not supposed to be converting people. That's the first mistake.
True. Are you sure? Because aren't we supposed to preach the good word?
Yes, you're supposed to speak and spread the good word, but there's also sections in there where it says you speak your piece. And if the person doesn't accept it, you knock the dust off your sandals and you keep it moving. You leave them how you found them. You don't stand there and argue with them. You don't curse them out. You don't tell them they're going to hell. That's not how it works. That's not how it works.
Didn't God convert Simon Peter, though?
That may be true, but that's a conversion that Simon Peter took within his own heart while dealing with Jesus. But at the end of the day, the conversion has to be willing. You can't force it. So in other words, if I come up to you and we're having a conversation and I'm telling you the good word and the gospel and all that good stuff, you have one or two choices: either accept it or deny it. Right? And I have one of two choices: argue with you about it or walk away. And it's already been stated in scripture that you're not to stand there and argue like that.
A lot of people don't know that scripture. I will admit, I'd never heard that one about don't argue with people. I've always been the one that you're supposed to spread the good word.
No, you walk into their home, You spread the word, you tell it to them. If they accept it, then they accept it. If they don't, then you knock the dust off your sandals and you keep it moving. And that's not the only one. The other one, the parable with Jesus of the mustard seed. Some will take it. Some it'll fall into into thorns. Others it'll fall on unfertile ground. It's just what it is. But you're not supposed to stand there and argue with people. You simply tell them what it is, and like the parable tells you, it will work if it works. If it does not, it will not. I mean,
Facts.
and that now that one with the parable is New Testament. The thing with knocking the dust from your sandals is from the Old Testament. So in either instance, bottom line is that this is not about arguing. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, he didn't. I mean, he did. We're not here to win arguments. We're here to win souls. That's it. That's it. So you,
Exactly.
so you say your piece, and like I said, if they take it, they take it. If they don't, they don't. But if they don't, you you diminish yourself if you turn around and get into a fight about it. Because at the end of the day, how do you convince somebody of your point of view when you can't even live by your point of view?
Toxic masculinity, ladies and gentlemen. Toxic fucking masculinity.
So it doesn't make sense, and it does make a difference what faith you follow. The principle applies across the board. If you're telling someone and they don't want to take it, you leave. But if they don't want to take it, and then you stand there and you want to curse them out, call them names, tell them they're going to hell, their family's gonna burn, that they're white, your women will be my handmaiden, your men will be slaves, yada yada. And that's another thing that fascinates me because you say all that stuff. But again, if we're reading from the same book, there are laws. There are 619 mitzvah laws that
Oh, shit.
shows you how to act in regards to workers, your slaves, your family, your business, how you deal with your animals. The list goes on and on.
You
So
said 600? Like, that's literally impossible to keep.
I got them printed out and going across the wall of my living room so I can always see them.
Like the even when I was into the comedic spirituality and comedic sciences, like even the 42 laws of Ma'at was like, damn, this is a lot of shit to keep to be perfect.
Mm-hmm. I literally printed out each and every one of them, and they are literally taped across one solid wall of my living room. So I can see them and review them every day, or if there's something I can't figure out, I just go there and I stand there and I read it and I study it and pray that the knowledge I need comes to me. That's what I do.
What's the most
That's
important law to you?
huh?
What's the most important law to you? Mine would be the golden rule.
Well, mine would be to love my God with all my heart and all my mind and soul.
Okay,
If
gotcha.
I do that, then I'm living by everything he tells me to. Therefore, everything else will fall in play naturally. That's me.
Well, see, Catholics say the same thing about the golden rule. Well, Christians say the same thing about the golden rule because it says that if you follow this one rule, then you have followed all the laws. We haven't heard that one where it says
No,
that do unto others as you
no.
want
Yeah,
done to you, and
yeah,
that
yeah.
you do that because there's a part in the New Testament says if you follow this one law, you have followed all the commandments. So that's
Yeah.
why even even when I'm out of religion, that's still kind of like the most important to me because, like I said, I'm atheist, but I don't discount the stories and the messages of the Bible because I feel like I know how to decode them and to apply them to everyday life.
Well, I've heard that said before, and there's validity in it. I mean, there's
It's like
validity in
it's
it.
literally the law of attraction, though. Do unto others as you want done to you.
Yeah. But and realistically speaking, I can see why if you do one, you would be fulfilling all the other commandments. But to me, in my mind, I think that's secondary. I still, because it's secondary at the end of the day, that'll teach you how to deal with yourself and deal with other people. But that doesn't talk to you about dealing with your God.
Yeah.
And to me, that's first and foremost in my mind. Not saying what they're doing is wrong. It's just that from my perspective, if I love my God with all my heart and all my soul, if I love the Most High beyond all things, then that comes with two things: the love of His law and the fear of His punishment. If I don't follow it, so if I maintain those two things at all times, everything else will come naturally. because if I love him enough to follow what he's telling me to do, then all the stuff like, do unto others, love your neighbor, don't covet, all that's going to naturally flow because I love him enough to follow the laws he gave me. So it's just a question of interpretation, but that's how I see it personally.
And for all you people that are Christian, pretty much what he said was commandment number one. Honor is the most important to him. So it's 600 in his religion, but in Christianity, he's saying commandment number one. Now here's a commandment that my mom and I argue about all the time. Commandment number 5: honor thy father and mother. And my thing to her is respect is earned, not given. I said, if God wants me to honor a mother or father that does physical harm to me or lets me get raped or something, like, how does he expect me to honor that person even though they're fucking my life up?
You don't, because you got to understand, just like everything else and every other person in every other situation, honor thy mother and father comes with tenets attached.
Facts.
It's not.
Please elaborate.
It's not something you just get for free. See, here's the thing: if you have a mother and father, and something happened to you, like happened to me, and they treat you the way they do, then that's no longer a mother and father. The Most High tells you that's unrighteousness, and you're not supposed to be around unrighteousness or unrighteous people. So for me, again, I'm only talking from my perspective. I look at that as being a situation where you're within your rights to step away. Don't talk bad about them, don't mistreat them, but you have every right not to be around them. Because like I said, for me, I left when I was 14. And if it wasn't for my mom and what we built together and her adopting me, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to see that there's a different way to do things. But even though she adopted me, I'm still not disrespectful to my birth mother. I don't call her names. I don't think of her less than. I am hurt over the things we've had to go through our lives. I haven't talked to her in about a decade, but again, well, that's her choice. That's her choice, and I respect it.
Hey, I have a similar type story. It hadn't been a decade, but like I told my mom the other day, I said, we don't talk all the time. And I said, that's your choice, because I've told you for years that every time I talk to you, you disrupt my peace. It's like you get off on making me upset. And I said, I don't understand it. I said, it's even been situations where you have lied to me or my brother to cause conflict, and I don't understand why you would do that. I said, so the relationship that we have is because of you. I said, but I said, the good thing about the relationship we have is, although we may talk once or twice a year, you know what we don't do? We don't argue.
Well, it's interesting because like I said, with my birth mother, I haven't spoken to her in a decade. As a matter of fact, let me rephrase that. I haven't spoke to any of that family except for maybe 2 cousins, who talked to me because for all intents and purposes, they pretty much went through the same thing I did. So they kind of get it and removed themselves, but they still keep in touch more than I do. But here's the thing, what I've learned with my birth mother, and this is one of those situations that until you get older and you start to force yourself to think outside your immediate feelings, I learned later on, quite some time later on, my mother and my grandmother and 2 of my aunts went through something similar. Well, not something similar. They were raped as well.
Wow.
And
Cycle.
once you understand that you just dealt with 2 to 3 generations who've gone through the same thing, you start to appreciate the aspect, not excusing it, but you start to appreciate the perspective that they came from when they came at you. You understand it better. You understand why they were incapable of helping you, because they weren't even capable of helping themselves. And you start to rethink things a little bit. Or at least
I use it as a way to predict the future and to change things, me personally.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So you know, and like I said, it's one of those things that you really don't start to be able to do that till you get to a certain age, and your brain and your, whether you want to or not, your brain kind of forces you to start thinking in a more mature level and aspect. So it's just one of those situations where, like I said, I spent a lot of years just being angry, just being upset about it. But when a particular cousin, one of the ones that I still talk to, actually started to explain things to me, um, after it was said and done, I spent like a day or two letting it roll through my head, and I sat down and I actually wrote a letter to my mother, and I told her that I did not know. And if you had simply shared that with me, this might not have been so bad. But I'm not saying that to be accusational. I'm just stating a fact. But I want you to know that regardless of anything, I never stopped loving you. I understand where you're coming from now, and you did the best you could with what you knew how. And that no matter what, you're loved. And I mailed it. I mailed it. And she wouldn't respond.
She didn't. Wow.
She didn't respond.
Well, we have a
And I
lot of
think
similarities.
I think a year later, my uncle Al, one of the few family members I still talk to, love him to death, love him to death. That is my man. He called me one day and he's like, "What's going on?" I said, "Nothing, nothing. How's everything going?" And he said, "Nothing much, nothing much. How's the family doing?" "No, everybody's okay. Everybody's okay." And he said, "Look, man, call your mother." "Excuse me? Call your mother? What is that supposed to mean?" "Look, man, you only got one mother, you know what I'm saying? Call her, yada, 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 yada." And I said, "You know what?" I said, "First of all, I called her months ago and I sent a letter to her." And he paused. He said, "You did?" I said, "Yeah, I did." And I said, "Now, we're grown men. I'm almost in I'm in my late 40s." He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Now I'm gonna, as men, we're gonna have a conversation." He said, "Okay." I said, "You don't have any right to call me and tell me what I need to do. I'm a grown ass man with children of my own. And to make matters worse, you picked up this phone and you called me without doing your homework. Because at the end of the day, she said something to you that put you in a position to call me that way." And he's like, well, yeah, I was talking to her and she was like, you haven't talked to her." I said, "Yeah, but she didn't tell you about the letter. She didn't tell you about the phone calls and messages." "Well, no, she didn't." I said, "Yeah, that's why you paused." I love you to death, but you have no idea what level of disrespect you just brought to me."
Right.
I said, "Don't be like Pookie and Ray Ray in the street where a piece of pussy tells you what to do when you just believe it without doing the research." I said, "Because you know me. You know me. You watch me grow up. You know I'm not that type of dude. You know I'm not. I don't run from confrontation. I don't run from hard conversations, and I don't run from being wrong." And he's like, "That's true. That's true. I owe you an apology." I said, "I don't want your apology. I don't. What I want is for you to correct it and not do it again." And he's like, "Nah, that's true. So what about?" I said, "Nope, we're done. I'll talk to you some other time." "Well, why is that?" "Because I'm angry. And I love you enough to know that I'm angry, that I need to calm down before I say something we're both going to regret. But I do love you, and I'll talk to you later. Peace." And hung up the phone.
Yeah, that's that beta male super simp that's encoded in all of us. We love our moms no matter what. We have to hate our dads. But the breaking point between me and my mom was when she told me that God told her I molested my child with no actual evidence. My child's mom didn't say that. My child didn't have no signs. No doctor or anything said that. This is what she told me. God told me you molested your child. And I said, I don't know who to be angry at. You for lying on God or God for allowing you to lie on me. And this was like 15 years ago. It took me 12 years to get an apology.
Yeah.
After that apology, she made it clear that if I brought it up again, she was going to say she didn't know what the fuck I was talking about.
Well, again, that personal responsibility. It's easy to push it off on somebody else. That's all. I mean, that's all it ever is. And like I said, both sides do it, but to the best of my knowledge, I've never seen anybody do it the way women do it.
Yeah, both sides do it, but if I had to put a percentage on it, and you know I put percentages on everything, it's 95% black women, 5% men.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. That's what I'm saying. Nobody does it the way they do.
I've never met a man religious zealot like I have women. I've met women that was sucking the shit out of my dick, and then when I told them I was atheist, they thought I was the scum of the earth.
Oh no, I hate to tell you, but I've seen some crazy ass men. I have.
They must be Hebrew Israelites. They must be Hebrew Israelites.
No. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've seen it with that, but I've seen it with them. I've seen it with Baptists. I've seen it with Protestants, and I've seen it with Catholics.
Yeah, it's that 5%.
I've seen it. Some of those men can get grimy. they can get to a whole new level.
Election day is Tuesday. How will your life be affected if Biden wins or if Trump wins? I just got to ask this question because everybody. Let me go on record by saying that I have been on record of saying I have never fucking voted for president. I voted for all the municipalities, but I've never voted for president, and I've never complained about what presidents do because I realize whether I vote or not, a motherfucker was going to get elected anyway. So this time, I am going to write myself in. I fuck with Trump, but I don't necessarily support him. So I'm going to write myself in. People look at me crazy for that, and I'm like, but y'all are talking about, y'all are picking the lesser of two evils. I'm like, that's like choosing between Beelzebub and Legion.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Neither one of them are doing anything in my interest.
Black people, pay attention to that. None of them are doing anything in your best interest. But I can say that one of them is a career politician that did shit that actually hurt black people.
Yes, I was about.
Yeah,
that's that. I was just about to go there. Look, Uncle Joe might be a likable dude when you're sitting down having a basic conversation, but here's the thing: you're talking about the man who sponsored the bill when Clinton was in office that added more jail time, more opportunity to arrest, and named black people as super predators. Him and Hillary Clinton did that, and he sponsored that bill.
He created the systematic, I won't say he created, but he enhanced the systematic racism that y'all are talking about in 2020.
And sponsoring that bill means he co-wrote part of it, if not the
he wrote the whole fucking thing. He's proud of saying he wrote it.
Yeah. So between that, the super predator, the more jail time, the more prisons being built. I mean, he's literally the foundation of the type of stuff you're seeing right now going on with black people. I'm not saying it didn't exist before, but the level it's gone to has a lot to do with that bill when Clinton was in office. Period. You can't deny that. You can go look at the statistics and see. And like I said, don't trust me. Go verify it. In that respect, it's a situation of the lesser of two evils. Is Trump better? No, not by a long shot. But right now, at least looking at his record, he hasn't done as much damage as they have. And again, that's my perspective. Other people may disagree.
My only issue with Trump is that sometimes he talks too fucking much. Other than that, I don't have a problem with him.
Well, okay. Here's the thing. I used to work at Smith Barney Investment Firm. He was one of our clients. That was in the early 90s. And I'm telling you, everything you see on TV is real life. He is an ass.
Yeah, I
He,
believe it.
he's an ass. Not only is he an ass, but he told you he was. But for some reason, people didn't want to believe him.
But seriously,
But
what successful billionaire is it? You don't think Jeff Bezos is an asshole? You don't think Warren Buffett is an asshole? You have to have a certain amount of I don't give a fuck, kiss my ass to be a successful person.
you do. You do. You absolutely do.
That's why I fuck with Jerry Jones.
Mm. But yeah, I get that. I get that. But like I said, I've already done my voting. And again, I don't want to speak too much on it because it gives away how I vote. And
Yeah, niggas will be upset if you didn't vote Democrat. So I feel you on that.
you have no idea the years of abuse I got just from saying I was a Republican back then.
Why do you think that is? Why is it that black people like you got LeBron and Chelsea Handler? You can have all types of black celebrities come out and say they support Biden, but as soon as a black person comes out and say I'm Republican, they're a coon, they're a sellout, they're a self-hater. Why do you think that is? But we claim we aren't a monolith until it comes to religion or politics.
Lyndon B. Johnson.
Ooh, go hit me with that quote he said. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, he's been recorded on tape where he stated that, by setting up welfare and giving away free money, he'll have niggas voting Democrat for the next 100 or 300 years or something like that.
And what year was that?
That was 1960 something, early 60s, mid 60s.
Yeah, so people out there, Facebook land and YouTube, is Lyndon Baines Johnson a prophet? Because he predicted this shit. Y'all niggas still blindly vote Democrat.
Well, it's about being on the plantation, man. It's about being, because see, here's the thing. Historically speaking, black people voted Republican.
We're conservative by nature.
Yeah, but initially when we got the right to vote and we voted Republican because of Lincoln, and the Emancipation Proclamation and a couple other things. The Dixiecrats have that name because they were the Southern political power who didn't like the idea of black people being free.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere along the lines from this, well, of course, Lyndon B. Johnson's not somewhere along the lines, but between Kennedy and Johnson, they got people to believe that they were the right choice for black people. And like I said, like
Kennedy fuck with us. I think Kennedy fuck with us.
To some degree. Yeah, Kennedy, better than Johnson. So.
They compared Trump to Kennedy. Because Trump is trying to get back to American values, and like it irritates me when people say when was America great for blacks, and I'm like, bro, you haven't. I'm like, you've been here your whole life, you haven't tried to leave, and the country was so bad that you decided to have fucking kids. I'm like, but literally there are millions of people that come here every year seeking refuge because their countries are that unbearable. So if America is that unbearable, why haven't you tried to leave?
Well, we did have a bright spot. It's somewhere, it's in a sweet spot, somewhere between, I would say, 56 and 67.
Yeah, Jim Crow.
Not just the Jim Crow thing, but there was a point in time where we carried ourselves better. We had the lowest divorce rate. We had the more fathers in homes than
But that was during Jim Crow, though. That was during the segregated times.
Yeah. And we carried ourselves, whether it be the way we dressed, the way we carried ourselves, we had the lowest, I mean, literally, the divorce rate was practically non-existent with us. When I say low, I mean, it was single digits low.
Yeah, black-owned businesses.
Yep. And that's why
self-pride. And that brings me back to another question.
And Malcolm,
black crime as big as it was back then as it is now? Was black on black crime a thing, or did we have a sense of community?
Yeah. No. It was still pretty big. Because you got to remember, if you're stuck, look, if if you're a bunch of wolves and you're trapped in a maze and there's only one place to get meat, you're gonna fight. You're gonna kill the other wolves to get to it, and that's what neighborhoods and especially projects gave us. You had your people eating their own because there was only but so many scraps to go around. So for those who did the positive thing and worked hard and got something, for every one of them, there was like 20 who didn't. So what is their game plan? To take from the one who did. So yeah, we still had it back then.
You are a philosophy major. Could you please tell the people where we got the idea of a ghetto from? Who did we get that from?
Well,
don't be afraid to say it. Don't be afraid to say it.
No, it's not. It's not about being afraid to say it. It's just that
Hitler.
Well, yeah, that's obvious. But the reason I paused is because as my brain is flitting through information, and the interesting part is that ghettos go back almost all the way to the beginning.
Explain.
Well, I mean, every nation that's ever conquered another nation, they would take the people they conquered and drop them into a specific section and tell them they're only required to be there. So ghettos go back Rome, Babylon, Mesopotamia, the Tower of Babel. I mean, it just ghettos have always existed. I mean, we just have different names for them, but they've always existed.
Black people, it's not a plot against us African Americans. It's not. It's just work. It's just life.
Yeah, it's just life. I mean, and I'm not trying to make light of it. It's just that's the fact of the matter. Throughout the history of this country, one group has conquered another and isolated them in specific sections. Whether it be to control the population so there's no future uprising or domination, or to be able to pick slaves from, that of your choice. But that's always been here. That's always been here. It's not just an us thing. It happened to the Greeks. It happened to the Persians. It happened to the Egyptians. Everybody's been taken and enslaved at some point in our history. That's why when I hear black people talking about, I hate Jews because they paid for the ships, that brought us here. Okay, you do understand that, if you want to go that route and the Jewish people were in slavery and you want to claim that, we're the true kings of Egypt, then by definition, you were their enslavers. So turnabout's fair play.
Facts.
And then they'll just look at me like, oh, fuck you. I don't want to talk to you. Why? Why?
And I get that all the time because when pro-black talk about, well, these Confederates are celebrating a losing history, I'm like, what do y'all think y'all doing when y'all keep referring to Kemet talking about we was kings? I said, at some point, we lost the shit. So are we not celebrating a losing history as well?
But here's my thing. Okay, so we got Confederates who want to celebrate their history. So what?
Exactly.
I mean, seriously, so what? You walk around saying you want to celebrate yours. Look, as long as nobody's putting hands on nobody, we're good to go.
Right. We're walking around talking about we're superior because we have more melanin than white people.
Yeah,
but we get upset when they say that the Aryan nation is the true race and all of this other stuff. I'm like, we're all doing the same thing. So how can we knock them for doing exactly what the fuck we're doing?
Well, see, I can't do it because if I did it, it would literally strip away the foundation of who I am. Okay, when I was in the military, I was in the 80s. Okay, so I did a tour over in Panama chasing after Noriega. Then we had the stuff going on in Afghanistan. Then in the early 90s, I did the Gulf. Okay, here's the problem. There is never going to come a time, I don't care how wrong they are in what they say, there is never, ever going to come a time where I tell anybody from this country that they cannot say or think what they want to do. I spilled blood for you to have the opportunity to do it. So why the hell would I turn around and tell you you can't? There's no logic in that. There's absolutely no logic in that. And if I did, it literally removes the foundation of who I am. Because I fought for this country because I believed in it. So what would I look like turning around saying you can't do what I just fought for? It makes no sense.
That's why when Kaepernick kneeled, I didn't have a feeling for it either way because I'm like, that's his right. And I served in the military, and I'm not offended by it.
No, I fought for him the right to be able to do that. Whether or not I agree with him has no relevance whatsoever. None. And just like when people ask me, what do you believe in what he did? That's none of your business. That's none of your business.
Well, it's one of those situations where I agree what he did, but I can't be mad at the employers either, because none of us as black people in America can go to our job and fucking protest on job's time and think we're going to keep our job.
Well, that's true. That's absolutely true. But that's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is that he has the choice, whether I agree or not, to make that call. And he also has the choice to accept the consequences of making that call.
Yep.
Okay. So either side, whether it be his employers or him himself, I have no feeling on it, because they have the right to make the choice that they do. Now, the problem we have is that we have two dichotomies coming at each other, an irresistible force and an immovable object. The irresistible force is Kaepernick, where he's coming from a moral perspective. However, the immovable object is the business, because it's coming from an ethical point of view. And the two are not the same. People think they are, but they're not. So they have to be. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the collision was inevitable. But at the end of the day, neither one is right, neither one is wrong. They simply work on the foundation of the principles of what they're doing. And it's just that simple. It's just that simple. Kaepernick, like I said, great for him from his moral perspective, but moral perspective has no place in business ethics. They're two totally different things. So you have to be prepared for the consequences. You can't complain and moan. You can't complain and moan about it, because you made the choice.
And he made that choice, and he isn't complaining about the choice he made, but it seems that Black America is complaining about the choice that this man is content with.
Right. And what's fascinating about that is everybody who's complaining, I guarantee you, are generally the ones who wouldn't have had the courage to do what he did.
Facts. Because like I tell people all the time, they call me coon. I'm like, you might want to be careful for that, because unless you work for a black-owned business, somebody could say you're a coon. If you don't act the same way you do on Facebook at your job, someone can call you a coon. When you say yes, sir, or no, ma'am, to your boss, or you have to call in to ask if you can be off, somebody can call you a coon.
Yep.
That's why I embraced it. I turned the word coon into an acronym for critical observation of niggas. And
yeah, I saw that.
I'm cooning this nigga on Facebook and YouTube proudly, because I have critical observation of you people. And as he said earlier, there's a difference between black people and niggas. And right now, black people are on the bottom because somewhere we started to praise the nigga behavior. And like even with my 17-year-old son, he's going through his identity crisis where he's trying to figure out who he is, and the black community is telling him, well, you know, the thug and the person that does this, that's the cool person. The nerd, as you said you were, nobody's checking for them. And it's a battle that us as all black people have to go through. Like I had to tell his mom and my mom, I'm like, believe it or not, the shit that y'all are saying my son is doing, I did. I said, but the difference between he and I is that this is why I'm not. I said, I know my son is on the right path because at 17, y'all may feel like he's going down the wrong way, but this kid wants to work. I said, how many street niggas do you know that want to actually work? I said, so he'll be okay. I said, I can't make him do what I want it is. What I can't make him do what it is that I want him to do. I just have to believe that me and his mom put enough good in him that he'll make the right decisions. And if he doesn't, I can't be upset at myself or blame myself for it. This is something I have to keep telling his mom. Like, look, at the end of the day, he has to decide whether he wants to be an upstanding citizen or not. There's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah. And it's the same thing.
It's the hardest shit to do, but it's literally what you have to do.
It's a must. It's a must. Now I'm coming at it from the perspective of having four daughters.
Ooh, I got three boys and one daughter, and my
Yeah, I
daughter
got
is two.
yeah, and the my two oldest are from my first marriage. My two youngest are from my second. And I'm telling you, my two oldest, I cut off. I cut off because
People look at me weird when I say that. I was like, there is nobody in my life that I cannot cut off. People look at me weird for that.
it's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be that way. It absolutely is. Because at the end of the day, um, my two oldest have this little game they like to play that they've learned from being raised by their mother instead of me, in which they try to use all those, I don't know, feminist tactics on me to guilt me into doing this, doing that, etc., and so on. And I'm like, you really, really don't understand who you're talking to.
You just have to tell them to keep living like my grandma said. I don't know if y'all can see that. It's
Yeah.
upside down, but that was one of my sayings my grandma used to say that stuck with me. Keep living.
The last time they came to visit me was about 5 years ago, I think it was. And my two youngest daughters, they just came here. My two oldest daughters just came, and they were just a hot mess. They just getting worse and worse. And at the ages of 32 and 28, it's just bad. It's just bad. And they came and they created so much turmoil in my house. My final response is you can't come back here.
Right.
You can't. You can't. And until you understand that regardless of whatever your mother taught you, whatever you think society's telling you, this is a patriarch. And in case you don't understand that, let me put it to you in the simplest terms possible in a language you can understand. I am head nigger in charge, not you.
AT&IC.
So, so you can leave. And they made a big stink. And my two youngest daughters walked into the living room, and I walked out. And I left for a little bit, and I came back. And when I walked in, they were my two youngest were talking to my two oldest. Said, "You don't understand. You didn't grow up with him. We did. He's serious. You
But
can't
that,
come
that
back
that
here."
might be part of the issue, though. I think the oldest daughters may resent that you had a relationship with the younger two and not
Oh,
the old.
absolutely. Oh
Because
no,
me and
absolutely.
my
No, no,
son are
absolutely.
going
No,
through that.
absolutely.
My 17-year-old son tells his mom all the time, well, you didn't want us. He only has one sibling with his mom. And he was like, you treat the other one better. And of course, he's the first of three more kids that I have. So I can understand why he's feeling like he ain't important and all of that. But as I have to tell him all the time, like, dude, if you actually talk to me and your mom, like your upbringing was way better than what the fuck we got.
Well, see, here's the thing with my situation. It was, and you're absolutely right. There was jealousy because that was figured out real quick, and it was talked about. My two oldest are jealous because the two youngest had me and they didn't. But here's the thing: we sat down and we had about a 2-hour conversation. Let me pull out some paperwork for you. And I pointed at a filing cabinet sitting in the corner of my office, and I told them to go in there, and they opened it, and it was this reams of paper that go all the way back to like 1996. And I said, I want you to take time to read them. Well, we can't read all this; it's too much. I said, okay, well, let me give you the abridged version. I woke up one morning, went to work, came back home. One of your mother's childhood friends came to me to tell me that your mother was cheating on an old boyfriend from high school. Confronted your mother. Your mother told me it was true. I asked her why she would do that. Your mother's response to me is, maybe I'm tired of being married to a black man, which was fascinating considering the boyfriend she was sleeping with was a black man. Only to find out 90 days later that the dude who told me she was sleeping with the other dude did that because he thought I was going to take out that dude because he was doing her as well. Then I came to find out that my best man from the military was also doing her every time he came over for dinner, and I think we're just hanging out. Then I go to sleep one day and there's a knock on the door and the police are there, and your mother tell the police that I've abused her and they removed me from my house. Then, in
Oh,
addition to that, instead of taking me to the police station, what do? They drive me to the edge of town, drop me off with my suitcase at the bus station, and tell me, we don't want your kind here. Don't come back. So,
I like
wait a minute.
I like that before. I like that better than going to jail, though. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, yeah, well, absolutely. Which only shows you that it was a lie, because if it was true, I would have been in jail. That right there proves to you it was a straight up lie. Plus, you have to understand, her father was in control of the National Guard for the town, and
Wow.
two of her uncles and three of her cousins were the sheriff and sheriff deputies. So, yeah, being taken to the bus station was a better choice. But just the fact that I didn't go to jail proves that it was a setup from Jump Street. So, with that being said, I leave. I go back to New York, because this was in North Carolina. I'm sorry, and went back to New York. Came down, presented in front of the judge. She took a year with my kids. She moved, vanished, didn't know where they were. I'm standing in front of the judge a year later. She's sitting there with her attorney, and she's not saying it, but she's trying to make it sound like I beat the kids. Okay? So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I get what's going on. I get what's going on. So then she said something, and I don't know what happened, but the judge turned around and he looked at me and asked me, she said something about my oldest Chris doing something, and I spanked her. That's what it was. And the judge turned around and looked at me and said, "Is that true?" And I stood there and I didn't say anything. And he's like, "Are you going to answer?" I said, "That depends." And he goes, "Why?" I said, "Because it's a question on whether or not you want the truth or whether or not you just want to throw me in jail." And he said, "How so?" I said, "Here's the question. Maybe I'm missing it because of being of a different race, black to white. But here's my math. Do you want to sit here and ask me if I spank my children for doing wrong? Or do you want to wait until they're 16, 17 years old and you're sending them to juvenile hall and you ask me how come I didn't spank them enough?" There's only one of those two options you can choose from. And he looked at me and he said, that's an interesting perspective. I said, "It's a factual perspective. Now, I don't know what she's telling you or who she's got behind you, but I'm telling you, my children have been taken from me. I have not seen them in a year, and I'm not going to play this game." And even with all that, he still ruled in her favor because, mothers can't be wrong. And so bouncing back and forth, trying to hide them from and all that good stuff, they didn't get to grow up with me. So, by the time I got to see them, they were adults. So that's where the jealousy came in, because when they would come visit after they were older, they would see their younger sisters and the benefit of having me present. They're, my youngest daughters are smart, they're educated, they got jobs, well-paying jobs at that. Okay, they carry themselves as ladies. And that's the thing I try to explain to women. You cannot diminish the value of having a father present and what the effect that has on not just children, but on girls specifically.
Exactly.
And they would ask me, "Why is that a big deal?" I said, "Because my grandmother explained it to me when I was very young and I had my first child. She looked at me and told me with no uncertain terms, whatever I do every morning, look in that mirror. Because whatever's looking back at you is what your daughter's going to be choosing."
Mm-hmm.
And that was not a joke. That was facts. That was
absolute
facts.
You know what's funny? I have black women tell me all the time, because I talk so much shit about black women, the shit that they do. They're like, "Your daughter's going to be like that." I'm like, bullshit. I was like, if anything, she will see how her dad talks about that behavior and want to do the opposite. I said, but in the slim chance that she does decide she wants to be those women I talk about, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to talk about her the same fucking way.
Yeah. And then, like I said, my two oldest daughters, they sit there, they complain, they're jealous about how their two younger sisters are doing better, because everybody's adults now. But they complain about how their younger sisters had this chance, that chance. I said, let me explain something to you with that paperwork you're looking at. Every single decision was your mother's. Period.
And that goes back
You're
to
gonna you're gonna
we
sit
hate
here.
our dads forever, but we can forgive
Mhm.
our moms for any fucking thing.
So you sit here and you want to be angry and you want to feel as if I abandoned you. You want to feel like I didn't care. You want to feel like nothing mattered to me. I'm gonna tell you right now, I have enough friends and relatives who will tell you I cried every damn day not having you present. Every single day. But I'm gonna tell you again, you can only get upset at your mother because every single decision that was made by her. Where you were, whether you interacted with me, whether you could or could, every choice was hers. So if you want to be angry, that's who you need to go to. And you being here at my house right now, I told you before you came here, you should tell her where you were going. And you told me you lied to her and told you were going somewhere else. And it's like, well, we didn't want to get her upset. Fuck her. It's not about her. You grown-ups. You don't have to worry about her being upset. But here's the secret. And it's like, what's that? I promise you, when you head back home, I promise you, she already knows where you're at. No, she don't. Yeah, she does. And they went back home the next day. They told her what happened and that, they couldn't be here anymore or something like that. Well, before they even got to it, they came back and they admitted to her where he went. And she looked up and she said, well, yeah, I already knew that. And they called me. I said, I told you she knew. They said, well, how did she know? I said, because you said you've been looking for me since you were a kid. And I'm telling you, your mother has court records that showed every single address I've ever had. You didn't have to look for me. She knew where I was.
I've told every last baby mamas of mine, all four of them. I was like, this is one thing I know for sure. I was like, you can keep that child away from me. I said, but one thing I know stands true. Every child wants to know who the fuck their parent is. So
They
even if
want to
they
know,
have to
yep,
wait till they're 18,
that's correct.
19, or 20, they're going to come looking for that person. And
Oh, yeah.
once they tell them what it is that happened, then you got to live with that. And one of the things my dad said to me when I was like 18 or 19, and I called myself being the super simp beta male, saying, "Why did you leave my mom?" and all of that. His response was simply, "Wait till you have kids, and then we'll have this conversation."
Yep,
4
yep,
kids later, I finally understand what the fuck he meant. And
yep.
people are like, "How aren't you mad at your dad? He didn't spend no time with you. He just sent child support." I was like, because I don't know what that woman put him through to make him say, "You know what? Fuck you. I'll just send the money." I said, so I can't knock any man that decides, you know what, if you want to put me through this hell, fuck it. It's not worth it.
Well, see, here's the thing. Here's the thing. The reason why women do that and the court system do that is because they know they know the secret. And this is what I try to explain to a lot of young brothers. It's not, look, yes, they use kids as leverage, but it's not just about the leverage. Okay? Here is the secret to being a father. 90% of it is just showing up.
Yep.
That's all it is. So what's the best way to take away from you being a father? Remove that 90%. How do you do that? She gets custody and she controls the kid.
Hmm.
Because kids really don't give a rat's ass whether you rich or not rich. They just want their dad.
They just
They
want to.
they 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 want to come home from school. I got a problem with this kid. What do I do? Yo, dad, I just won this trophy. I want to show you. It's 90% is just being there, and they know this, and that's why they removed them from us. Money is a side benefit.
Right.
Money's the side hustle.
Kids
Because
aren't expensive as they try to make it seem either. So I had to
the
tell my
yeah,
partner. My partner was like, "Man," I was like, "We gonna have a kid?" He was like, "Man, kids are expensive." I'm like, "Only if you trying to dress them in fucking designer and shit." I'm like, "This shit is not really
mhm.
that expensive."
No, it's not. It's not. It's not. And I'm telling you, I'm a bargain bin. Look. I'm not saying I'm rich, but I'm okay. But I tell you what, I'm a bargain bin motherfucker if there ever was one. That's why I tell people never misunderstand who you're standing next to.
Hmm.
Just because they're dressed sloppily don't mean they're not a millionaire. We used to know stuff like that, but we don't anymore. You
The
never know who you're standing to.
Yeah, the only name brand that I insist my kids wear is when it comes to their shoes. As far as clothes and other shit, I don't care. But
Well,
shoes, because
well,
I was
shoes,
a young black man and I know how I was made fun of for my Payless shoes that my dad would buy.
man. I used to wear them things all the time with pride. I had no problem with it.
Well, I mean, I wore them. Here's the thing: I went to an all-white school, so when I went to all-white schools, the majority of them wore those same Spaldings and shit. Just a
Yeah.
few of them
Okay.
had Nikes, but none of them had Jordans. A few of them had like some Nikes or whatever, but none of them had Jordans, so that was normal. But once I left school, I had to come back to the black community. And
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
black community, I was made fun of for the type of shoes that I had
Yeah.
because even though their parents were poor, they were still able to buy them Jordans and pennies and shit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. See, for
I
me,
did carry that. I don't know if it's good or bad, but I do carry that with my kids to where I'll make sure they have on some name brand fucking shoes. Other than that, I don't care.
well, I do what I do. I do a higher quality and name brand shoes, not because of that. I do it because of the quality level. You're using your shoes. I mean, you're not wearing the same pair of jeans every day, but you are wearing the same pair of shoes to school. So I need something of quality to last longer than pay less knockoffs or stuff like that because they have a tendency to go faster. But that's the only reason I get better quality shoes. As far as it goes for the clothes and stuff, man, look, man, I'll do Walmart, I'll do Dress Barn. I don't care. All it has to do is look nice. It doesn't have to have. First of all, I'm not paying somebody for the privilege of advertising them. Let me put it that. Let me put that down first.
I mean, I can't lie. I used to go through that phase. Nowadays, if it ain't my shit, I ain't wearing. Other than jeans, like if it's as far as shirts and shit, if it ain't my brand, I ain't wearing it. I don't make no jeans, but I got my own shirts and shit. So if it's not
Nah,
my brand, I'm not fucking wearing it.
I never went through that with the name brands ever. However, I will say
Really,
this. I
really.
didn't
So
no
when you graduated, you never want to go get you no Versace or no Gucci sweater or no shit
no
like that.
no sir. No
No
sir.
Gucci.
As
You came up in the '80s. You ain't want no Gucci.
no, I didn't do any of that. I didn't do that. I didn't do the Gucci, I didn't do the Pumas, I didn't do the Jordan. I didn't do any of that. As a matter of fact, I spend all my money on books, man. To be honest with you,
I'm
like I said, like I said, I was a nerd, so that's what mattered to me. It was the same way everybody picked on me for not having a girlfriend or having sex or stuff because I lost my virginity at like 18, 19 years old. And truth be told, I didn't do it because I was interested. I did it to get it over with because I was tired of everybody bothering me about it.
and quietly kept. A lot of us have sex at that age too. We just feel the peer pressure to lie about it earlier to fit in.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. Like I said, girls were
Well,
never
I'm
like that
saying
in my.
back in our day, girls wasn't fucking like that. It was maybe like when like I said, I graduated 2001, and my whole 4 years of high school, there was maybe like three girls that were pregnant. So
Graduated,
oh,
graduated, graduated what?
I'm saying I graduated in 2001 from high school, and in high school, in my 4 years, there were only like three girls that were pregnant. So girls weren't fucking like that.
2001. Sheesh, I'm old.
Yeah. And I'm young, but I'm getting old. That's why I said I graduated and went straight to the fucking military. And it
Yeah.
just so happened my enlistment day was September 11, 2001. And
Wow.
boy, I had some decisions to make that day when we were sitting there watching them towers. Bob, like, do I want to go through this shit or not?
Yeah.
And one of my partners that I went through high school with, we enlisted the same day. His ass didn't show up. He showed up Wednesday. They sent us back because all the flights were grounded. His ass didn't show up Thursday. Nothing ever happened to him.
Wow. Okay.
Well, you
It's
know,
like
when you're technically not enlisted until you touch foot down on the base.
well now, but it wasn't like that when I was in. Once you signed those papers. Oh, once you signed those papers, man, whether it was DEP or not, you signed them. You're coming.
Shit. Well, I'm
Yeah,
glad
yeah,
they didn't do that because there was plenty of times in goddamn it basic training I thought about going AWOL. I was like, fuck
yeah.
this shit.
Because I graduated in 1985, and I took some time off, and then I signed up on the DEP, and I went in late '86. Like I think it was like October 21st, October 21st,
Was it
1986.
deferred entry program?
Yeah. The late entry program. Yeah, that's DEP. And yeah, as a matter of fact, back then we still had the thing where you could, because nowadays I think you can only sign up for 4, 6, or 8 years. When I went in, we were still doing 2, 4, 6.
Yeah. Well,
So
I mean, I think they only give you the option of 6 or more if you're going into officer training school.
it might be, it might be.
Like me,
'Cause
I did so high on my SVAB. Like as soon as I graduated basic training, I had 2 stripes. So
yeah,
pretty much doing basic training, I already knew as long as I get through this, I outrank all you motherfuckers.
yeah. I know. When I took my ASVAB, I know after it was over, they told me to come back like a day or two just to see what the results were. Um, they called me back that same day, and they were like, we need you to come in. And I'm like, why? So we need to talk about your test. I'm like, did I do something wrong? So no. We just need to talk to you about your test. Could you come
Your
in?
shit good.
And I came in, and they looked at me, and they was like, you scored extremely high. We would like to do something. I was like, what's that? He said, we have this Morse code test that we'd like you to take. And I'm like, why? It's like, well, we're trying to figure something out. I'm like, okay. So I went and took the test, and I came out, and I took the test. I came out. They told me to wait. I think it took like an hour, and then the one recruiter I had came out with another recruiter and 2 officers and said, come to the office. And then they pulled out the test, and they said, you got a score of 100. I was like, oh, cool. To me, it's whatever. Okay, cool. I got it. All right, so cool. And then they looked at me and said, can we ask you a question? I said, sure. Said, you're from Brooklyn, New York. Yes, I am. Would you mind if we ask you how, as a black person from Brooklyn, you know Morse code? I was like, well, I did it. And I was like, well, I used to do it when I was a kid. And
Oh, really?
They looked at me and said, seriously? I said, yeah. And then the officer looked at me and said, how is that possible? I said, remember when we were growing up, we had G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip? And he said, yeah. And I said, and we had the Hot Wheels racetrack, and we had the little walkie-talkies that would come with G.I. Joe? He's like, yeah. I said, if you look at the front of the walkie-talkie, the Morse code stuff is right there. So I memorized it.
Oh, the beep, 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 beep. Sure
Yeah.
in the fuck. It sure
Yeah.
in the fuck did tell you what 1 beep was, 2 beep
Yeah.
was, 3 beep.
Yeah.
Dang.
It was all right there on the front. And he's like, and you memorized it? I said, well, me and my friend Patrick would like fool around with it all the time, so I memorized it. And he just looked at me. He said,
Wow.
why? He's like, why? We were having fun. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's literally sitting there with this look on his face. White guy. He's like, just because it was fun, you memorized Morse code. I do stuff like that. I've always been that way. And
Right.
then he started asking me questions about science and stuff like that, and I'm answering them and blah 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 blah. And then he's talking about something. He said something about physics. I can't remember what it was, and it triggered something in my mind because used to have an argument with a science teacher. But he said something about mathematical equations, and he started talking about what did he say? He started doing the thing with E equals MC squared, and I started breaking that down. And then he said something about light moving at 186,000 miles per second. I said, yeah, for an amateur. And he looked at me like, and he's like, what is that supposed to mean? I said, well, anybody who studied physics knows that the photons that make up light move faster than that. And
Yes.
not only do they move faster than that, but they jump in and out of dimensions randomly. And he just like, okay, wait a minute. Wait. So and he's like, and your teacher taught you this. I said, no, I taught him because I had to explain it to him in class. He wasn't too happy about that.
And that's what perturbs me about people. People have told me all my life, Mark, you're smart. You're smart. You're smart. You're smart. But then when I do something, it's like they question me. I'm like, but if you told me I was smart, obviously I made some calculations before I made the decision to do what the fuck it is that I'm doing. So I'm kind of confused. Am I smarter or am I not? Because even like in 2001, the guy that I said didn't join,
Yeah.
like I don't know how many high schools it is in Memphis, but we were both from the same high school, and we had the 2 highest ASVAB scores in Memphis in 2001.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what I wanted to do when I took the ASVAB was to be a pilot, but my eyes were too fucked up to do it, and they wouldn't provide me LASIK surgery at the time because it was too fucking expensive in 2001.
Okay. Because
So
the
I
reason
ended up going into security forces.
yeah, because the reason I told that story is because I want the listeners to understand that no matter where you go, when you're good, you're gonna get that reaction.
Don't matter what color you are, if
Yeah,
you can provide a service to someone, someone will invest
yeah,
in your dream. And
exactly.
a lot of people feel like if somebody invests in your dream, that they want the actual best for you. Don't get that confused. No, they want to make them some profit. In them
Oh,
making
yeah.
profit, they're cool if you get some, but the big idea, the end goal of them is to make money. And I'm not upset with that, because if I can make money with you, then 5 years down the road, I can come to you with something else and be like, hey, remember we made money together?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's what happened. That's what happened after that whole conversation because they kept me there for like 3 hours. And by the time it was said and done, that offer because when I went in to be an MP.
Same thing, security for.
Yeah,
Did you have this conversation with them by yourself? Because I know I had all my military conversations by myself.
yes, I did, and they because it came with all the stuff about FBI background check on me, my family. Yeah, yeah, all that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
did
had
all that.
PRP clearance and all that, but I'm saying, like, it was weird. My mom was never there. I don't think my mom ever met a recruiter.
No, mine didn't either. Mine didn't either. Now, at least if she did, she didn't say anything to me. But I do know that when it was all said and done, I remember that officer was a captain, and he said, I see you signed up to be an MP. I was like, yeah. He said, not like that. I was like, what is that supposed to mean? No, sir. You are going into military intelligence. I was like, really? He said, yeah. So look at this is what we got. We got AP Morse code, we got ground surveillance radar, we got counterintelligence, we got imagery analysts. Which one you want? So, me being me,
Let
why
me
can't
guess,
I
you did counterintelligence.
actually I looked at him and I said, why can't I do all of them?
Ah,
So
okay.
so he looked at me, he said, are you serious? I said, yeah. I mean, I can switch like training, right? He said, well, you have to be in a certain amount of time, but yeah, we have stuff inside the military where you can take the MOS courses and get the training for that while still being in. I said, yeah, let's do that. So he looked at me, he said, I like you. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to start you off for ground surveillance radar. And I was like, why? He said, because you're worthy of that $10,000 bonus.
They
So,
lied to me about my $10,000 bonus. Based on my ASVAB score, I was supposed to get a 10,000 bonus along with my rank when I graduated basic training. They lied to me, and that
are you
was
serious?
yes, that's how my yeah. They said they were gonna give me $10,000, and they tried to hide that under the GI Bill, but that's what they promised me. And
Wow.
so they lied, and that turned my relationship with them sour. But
Wait, wait,
even
wait, wait,
when I was
wait,
in even
wait.
go ahead.
Well, hold on. I'm sorry. Just real quick. How did they set it? How did they set that up with the GI Bill?
I mean, back in the day, they could just tell you anything. They could tell you shit, but it wasn't in the paperwork. The only thing that was in the
Okay.
paperwork was I was going to get my 2 stripes. They kept that, but they didn't give me the $10,000 bonus that I was supposed to get for signing on due to my ASVAB score. I never got.
Yeah. Because when I went in, it wasn't the GI Bill yet. When I went in, it was still the Montgomery Bill. They
That's same
changed.
shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
called it the GI
Yeah.
Montgomery bill when I was in.
Yeah, because when I was in, it was the Montgomery Bill. I think after my first year and a half, they switched it and called it a GI Bill. Added a couple other benefits or something onto it or something like that.
But yeah,
Um,
like even in basic training, I was taking clip tests like without studying and acing the mother. Like by the time I graduated basic training, I had passed 3 tests that gave me college credits in like 3 courses.
yeah, 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 yeah. I
And they
did.
were
Yeah,
like, "How in the fuck are you doing this?" Like, well, one, my mom is a teacher, and I just have a natural affinity for passing fucking standardized testing. I don't know what it
hmm
is.
yeah,
Standardized
yeah.
testing. I can ace any of them shits. But if you give me something specific, then it might be a different story. But if it's one of those things where you give me choices, I always seem to pick the right answer.
Well, see, here's the thing. There's been so much time spent on paying attention to isolating an individual's aptitude for one thing. But what they fail to understand is that there are people like us out there who have an aptitude for aptitude. You see what I'm saying?
Shit.
Yeah, a jack of all trades, so to speak. We have an aptitude to learn pretty much anything whenever we want. I know they try to use terms like polymath and all that stuff, but I don't even think that's accurate, personally speaking. But there's an aptitude for having an aptitude for learning anything when you need to learn it at the moment you learn it. That's an exceptional gift to me. And I apply it and use it as much as I possibly can. But yeah, it's just it was weird. But yeah, he got me into that. Made sure I got the 10 grand. I spent my first year in with it just sitting in the bank. Of course, like anything else, any female relatives you got want to ask you what you're doing with it, how they can get a piece of it. But I held on to it, and I think after my first year and a half, I was talking to another guy from Illinois, Carrie Hewitt. There you go, Carrie Hewitt. And we talked about real estate a lot, and that's when I got my first property. So, and I used it from there.
Did you experience any racism in the military? I personally did not.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
did?
Of course. Yeah, I did. But it was that classic situation. I'm not sure if I can really call it racism as it was bias. Because what would happen is I would have all these white guys from different places, and they'd come at me with the stereotypes, this, that, and et cetera, and so on. But then when they get to know me, they start throwing all of it, away. It's like, okay, I didn't know this, I didn't know that, I didn't know it was like this, I didn't know it's like. I said, yeah, we're not all like that, man. We're not bad people. And then they start changing their mind, and we become good friends, and still are to this day. Actually, we're godfathers to some of each other's children.
Yeah.
So in that respect, yeah. Like I said, I'm not sure if I would call it racism as I would bias.
Well, yeah, that was probably more of they had never been around black people before, and so they got questions.
Exactly.
And I can say I went through that a lot, even in my grade school era, because I heard shit about white people, but I was also at school with nothing but white people, so I got a chance to ask them about it.
Exactly. Because see, here's my thing. A true racist doesn't want to be bothered with you at all. He don't want to get to know you. He don't want to know anything about you. He don't want to be in your presence. He don't want you in his presence. He don't want you in his neighborhood. He has no interest in you whatsoever. That's a real racist. They have no interest of you even being remotely near them. I remember watching an episode of Judge Mathis one time, where he had two people in there, and I think the defendant tried to smear the plaintiff because they were both white. And the defendant said, "Well, you don't understand, Your Honor. The plaintiff is a racist. He don't like black people, and he's just evil and yada yada yada." And it was very interesting because Judge Mathis looked up and said, "Well, that's impossible." And the person looked at him weird. He said, "Because here's the thing: if he was a true racist, he most definitely would not be here in my court under my authority and jurisdiction. It doesn't work that way."
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go let this black guy rule against me.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, wow, that's using your logic. That's paying attention to what people are saying and trying to do. And he was right. Because no racist would put themselves under the authority of a black man. They wouldn't in any case. And what made it interesting is that the guy that was being accused of racist is the one who brought all of them there. So, I mean, it was fascinating. It was fascinating. But he was right, though. He was right. No racist would put himself under my authority. So I know for a fact you're lying. And I was like, wow.
Do you think that it's the elders perpetuating this cycle of racism or the younger generation? Because, I mean, when I look out and I see all of the civil unrest that's been happening this year, I've been seeing black people and white people, the younger people and my age, together in harmony, trying to work together for this goal. So do you think it's more of the older generation holding on to the racism?
What I think, what I think is the vast majority of people who are propagating the current circumstances are not even us.
Us meaning black people?
Yeah,
Or what do you mean?
I mean us as black people. If you look at the vast majority of people who are screaming the loudest, pushing for agendas the most, being arrested, causing civil unrest, that damaging neighborhoods and etc. and so on. I'm not saying none of us are involved because we are, but the people leading it, if you really look at it and you do the research, they're not us.
Yeah.
They're not us. They're generally white. They're generally well-off people. And when I say well-off, they come from families of money and power. And,
But
and, and, and they're the ones making the most noise. Unfortunately, we have a lot of our people who are just riding along to get along. They're just following them.
but that,
And
that
again,
kind of shows that racism isn't as prevalent as it was back in the day if these white people are willing to do that. Because, I mean, even in the civil rights era, we had white people helping, but they weren't publicized as being arrested and out helping us tear up shit.
well, the way I look at it now is that I think it's one of those situations where, um, do we still have racism? Yes. Do I see you, but I can't hear you. I see. Can you hear me? Nod your head. Yeah. Nod your head. Nod your head if you can see, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear
Yeah.
you.
Oh, okay. You're on mute.
My Bluetooth died. I can hear you, though.
Okay. What I was saying, is that me echoing?
Probably because my Bluetooth went off. Let me see if I can
No,
cut
no, no,
my
no, no, no,
volume
no.
down.
No, no, no. You're fine. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't me.
It's
Um,
probably me echoing because I'm not on Bluetooth anymore.
okay. But what I was going to say is that, do I think racism still exists? Yes, absolutely. Do I think it's as prevalent as people are making it out to be? No, I do not. Um, I think we have a lot of systemic stuff that's still in place that holds us as a people down, and others as well. But
Please explain what you mean by systemic.
well, there are situations and systems in place that keep us from reaching a certain height in power and wealth. um, I I think they've been put in place quite some time ago, and I think the people who are in power now don't want to move it because it means that they have to share that power. I don't know if it's as big as a problem as it used to be, but it does still exist. I just don't think it exists on a level that a lot of people are trying to make it out to be. I mean, when you hear them talk, they make it sound like somebody's got a foot on our neck 24/7, and it's not the case. I can point to a lot of companies, a lot of presidents, a lot of vice presidents, directors, you name it, in which they actually are trying to help. They are trying to give us opportunities. Like I tell people when they challenge me on it, come over to my LinkedIn page, connect with me, and then go through everybody I'm connected with. Okay, if they you can't build those kind of relationships unless those people are willing to build them with you. Because I look at LinkedIn the way I looked at Facebook. I don't just accept a friend request. I don't. Because if you have nothing of value for me and I have nothing of value to you, I'm not going to collect you because you randomly chose me. As a matter of fact, when I looked at my LinkedIn yesterday, there's like 40 something people sitting in there, and I think out of three of them I know, and the rest of them I told I have no idea who you are. You're irrelevant to me, and you're contacting me without even knowing me. One of them responded back saying that, well, we have five LinkedIn connections that we have in common. Okay, I'm happy for you. but I don't know you. Now, don't get me wrong. If those five we have in connection want to speak out for you and say you're worthy of me connecting with you, that's great. But if they don't, you're not coming in here. Um, I took a long time to build my network and build my relationships, both professional and personal. I'm not going to let somebody I don't know anything about come in and jeopardize that.
Yeah, I can agree. You know, me as a damn entertainer slash personality, I let anybody in until they prove themselves unworthy. Then once they prove themselves unworthy, it's like, because part of my mission is to, even people I don't know, I might not know everybody, but hopefully something I say or something we've said during this can reach somebody and get them to change their way of thinking. And I don't care which way of thinking you change, as long as you change your way of thinking to become a better person, that's my goal. And I realize I can't reach everyone. And that's why, like, every day it baffles me how people can call me names and all type of shits, but they won't unfriend me. I'm like, literally, I'm like, I don't know you people. I don't talk. I don't comment on y'all shit. Like, but y'all have shit to say about me every day, but y'all won't unfriend me. Why won't you unfriend? Am I that bad? If you keep watching me,
You okay? And I'm taking a shot in the dark here. And if I'm incorrect, please correct me. But this is what I see with everything you just said, and I'm speaking about you specifically. Here is the most difficult part of what you're trying to do. Two parts. Part one, everybody can't be saved. Now here's part two, and
that's
this is
my.
the most.
I'm
Hold on.
like God in that sense
Yeah.
because I only want 2/3 of y'all ain't gonna be able to rock with me.
Well, it's yeah. So part one is you can't save everybody, but here's part two, and part two is the most difficult part of all. You're not supposed to.
I know. That's why I have no problem saying I want my shit exclusive like a country club. Everybody can't get in. Just like
Yeah.
God say only 144,000 getting into heaven. I don't want to take all you niggas with me.
Well, yeah, and it was difficult because my cousin Denise actually corrected me. I remember we were having a conversation one time, and I was talking about wanting to do this, wanting to build this, give people a chance for this, give people a chance for that. And she looked at me. She said, "Why would you do that?" I said, "Well, that's a weird question. I want to help people." She's like, "Well, why do you want to do that?" I said, "Because the Most High, I need to go out there and I need to help people because the Most High said that's what you're supposed to do." And she looked at me. She said, "So let me see if I get this straight. You're trying to tell me that God can't fix anything unless you do it? You're telling me you're that important that you're the only person who can fix it?" And I kind of sat back a little bit there because that question threw me for a little bit of a loop. And she's like, "You misunderstanding how this works. What it is you help those present as best you can. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But it is not your job to get up in the morning and come up with a plan to go around the country and the world to save as many people as possible. That's not your job." She said, "This is not your backyard. It is not your world. The only person responsible for fixing it is the Most High Himself. That's why He gave us the Bible so we can understand what to do, how to do it, and what happens if we don't."
Exactly. And I definitely agree because when I was on my Save the Black Community crusade and I was pro-black and all of that, nobody paid attention to me.
Oh, I
And
know.
then
I
when I
was there.
decided to rebrand and say, you know what, I'm going to start calling out the shit in the community that's fucked up because I've lived it. I was one of those guys that was raised with a single black mom. I went to a private school, yet my family and everybody in the neighborhood treated me differently. I said, I'm going to start talking about that because it's a lot of us out here They have the same upbringing. A lot of us are struggling whether to be the nerd and to go to college or to be the stripper or the thug. And the black community tells us to be the thug. And I'm saying that I've been on both sides of the spectrum, and the better choice is to be who the fuck you are.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
No, when you're the thug, everybody thinks you're cool until you go to jail and you need them, and then they ain't got shit for you.
Well, see, here's for me. Like I said, I was blessed. My cousin William and his friends, they ran the neighborhood, they did their dirt, but they always made sure I didn't become involved in that. They kept it away from me. They didn't let me see it, and they made sure to make it abundantly clear every day that I was in their presence, not to be like them. Then the blessing of being adopted by my mom, I just want to say there is never a single day that goes by that I do not understand how lucky and absolutely blessed I am to have what I have. Because there were so many factors that tried to keep me from that. That, like the saying goes, there but for the grace of God, I would have been running with the wrong people, doing the wrong thing, and either dying or going to jail. It's one of those situations where I look back now, and the vast majority of people from my neighborhood, they're gone. They're gone. Whether it be prison, whether overdosing, whether drive-bys, whatever have you may, it's just done. And I'm very blessed for that. I'm very blessed for that, and I remind myself of that every day.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Toxic Masculinity Show. I am your host, MoneyBoy Trey. I am here with Dr. Lawrence Guy, and we have been talking about a little bit of everything: racism, our personal experiences, voting, all of that good shit. Dr. Lawrence Guy, we have been on for 3 hours and 50 minutes. I want you to give these people the last word before my device cuts out.
I just want to tell people, be good. Be good, and I don't mean be good to other people. Be good to yourself, and be good to yourself in a non-selfish way.
Be good to yourself first.
Yeah, exactly. Be good to yourself, because if you're good to yourself, I promise you'll be good to everybody else. And when I say be good to yourself, I don't mean in a selfish way. I mean, be good to yourself by doing the right thing all the time. So you walk in a space that you're always happy. And overall, I think my last phrase is the same thing I say all the time. For the young brothers out there, for the middle-aged brothers, for the older brothers like me, we can do better. We can be better because we are better. Men first.
Amen. Well, when you get through with your social media sabbatical, we definitely have to link up and do another stream. I thank you for coming on and spending these 4 hours with me. I hopefully everybody out there in the audience got as much as I did, because I learned some shit that I did not know.
I did as well.
I enjoyed this conversation, ladies and gentlemen. I will be back with you for episode 17 in the next day or so. Lawrence, hit me up behind the scenes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
We are out.
MoneyBoy. Trade. MoneyBoy. Trade.
Private jet flights overseas.